And checking. Oops. Boink. Excellent connection. Here we go. All of the things. Bibbity bobbity boo. Hello. How are you guys all doing today? I have a pretty quiet one. Pretty nice one. Went and got my dog out for a real nice walk today. Was feeling pretty burfy, feeling pretty spicy. Which is kind of the opposite of how I've been feeling. Oh, there we go. There's this spice. See what I'm talking about? It's okay, buddy. I know I'm talking. Who am I talking to? It must be you, right? If it's not you, buddy, then who am I talking to? That's okay, buddy. Go have your peanut butter, right? Like he jumps up, starts barking, looks at his peanut butter, starts eating his peanut butter. What a character. What a character, man. Good, thanks. Just watch Hedges and Wolf talking oligarchy, so still coming down. Yeah. Those are the two powerful men in the conversation right now. There are many. Like, Noam Chomsky does a pretty good job of it. Although Chomsky, I'm finding, people are responding more and more to Chomsky because he is unwilling to take the next step into outright protest. Like he's trying to continue an electoralism kind of line and all of this, but he's still very astute. Whereas Hedges and Wolf are getting to the point where they're just saying like, yeah, like we need to take to the streets, like it's all that's left. And yeah, so I can imagine a conversation between those two. And more those two figures are finding ways to connect with one another. More and more, I'm finding. It's essentially become like a once-a-month conversation those two guys are having. Because I think Wolf really admires Hedges' knowledge of empire decline. Hedges having witnessed several nations collapse and several nations go into a period of decline. So Hedges is uniquely positioned and uniquely knowledgeable about what happens when empires and what happens when societies go into periods of decline. And Hedges, I think, really respects Wolf's economic prowess. So the two really complement one another very, very well. Hey, Major, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Isn't it reasonable to say that Chomsky's perspective is affected by his advanced age? I wouldn't want to fight at 90. Yeah, there's that too. I mean, someone like Michael Parenti, for example, who is still alive, and Michael Parenti is actually younger than Noam Chomsky, and yet he doesn't go out and lecture or any of this. So the fact that Chomsky is staying in the conversation even at all, given his age, is absolutely the case. I just think that Chomsky, what Chomsky's been really good about articulating. Like, Chomsky gives us a really strong foundation to work off of. Like, he explicitly calls the climate change disaster, like he has said, it's beyond evil. Like, evil doesn't even begin to articulate the word. He is the one who first called the Republican Party more dangerous than the Nazis, right? I disagree with him. And I think it's fine to disagree with someone like Noam Chomsky, but I disagree with him on his assessment of that there is a difference between the Republican and the Democratic Party. I think that he does, like, whether, how to say this accurately, because when it comes to Noam Chomsky, you've got to be accurate, like you've got to be really accurate and precise, because he is so accurate and precise. But in the last election, he was telling people to vote for Biden, right? Instead of saying that the electoral system is completely fraudulent, which it is. And he was clear about why. Like, he was like, at least these guys are saying that climate change is real and something could be done about it. Nothing is being done about it because he doesn't articulate the reality of the situation between the Republicans and the Democrats, which is that they're the same party that works for the same people. That it is like a WWE soap opera kind of situation that we've got ourselves into. And that's, like, I think the one critique that I'm willing to give Chomsky. And I think that the reason why he's not willing to take that step and actually say that is because of his breadth of experience. Like, he's very politically astute, and because of his, like, political analysis throughout time, I think he would be unwilling to kind of get to that final statement. And he would want to be very careful saying that kind of thing. Whereas, a young man like myself, especially compared to Noam Chomsky, a young man like myself can be far more reckless in their statements. And I'm more than happy to say that the Republicans and the Democrats are the same party that work for the same people, right? And how you doing, Mark? Good to see you. George Manor? Well, and a happy George Manor to you. I don't know what that's in reference to, Mark. All right, guys. Let's. I didn't play the song, so I'm gonna play the song. We're streaming today. We're streaming today. Hey, Vince. I hope you're feeling fine. There's so many streams for us to see, but this one here is mine. I hope that you're happy. I hope that you're well. Now come on and join me. Watch the world go to hell as we are streaming away. We're streaming today. Let's stream today. Such a nice tune for such an apocalyptic time. And as always, guys, let's do the number draw. Right? It's good to do the number draw. Maybe today
Here
I'll get it.
Here we go for today's number.
I'm going with a 6.
It's October 7th, 2021.
Can't forget the bread loaf bumble guppy. That's right. Are you in with
Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10.
We got a 7. We got a 4.
Swirl the numbers. Pick a number.
3. Another 7. Let's see what we can do.
Today's number is
1.
1.
What a bullshit number. 1. Boo. I mean, you can do anything with 1, right? Like, how many of us played the game? 5. 5. Lame. Who picks a 1, right? Like, fuck you. Womp womp, exactly. You know what, man? I gotta tell you, I feel it. I feel this week, for myself personally, and also for just like the news, just what's going on and spreading around in the news. 7 plus 7 minus 3. Well, that would be 11. Oh, 2 1s. Yeah, okay, mocked. I get it. I just feel like there's a general malaise going on now. Like, the election ended. All of these politicians have kind of gone on vacation and done their breaks and everything. People have criticized Justin Trudeau for taking a break. And but it just seems like everybody's kind of like, oof. I've noticed a slowing down on my own channel. Like, I've noticed not a disconnect, so to speak, but just like, a decline in participation, a kind of slow kind of thing. It's like everybody wants to take a break. And everybody wants a break from the madness, it seems like. Well, this guy can't take breaks. So off we go. Let's start with the first bit of news, right? Canada's wireless prices still among the highest in the world in 2021. And like, it's just right here. Here's the graph, right? Here's Canada, right at the top, right? Minimum monthly price for 100 gigabytes. You go down here to like Israel, India, for God's sakes, Romania, Malaysia, Italy, Chile, France, Russia, Ireland, Estonia, Lithuania, right? So we have a monopoly, right? Like, that's very, very clear. And like, you're looking at a situation where, to give it more raw numbers, the study shows that for 100 gigabytes of data, it's 13 times more expensive. Essentially, 100 gigabytes of data costs $175 in Canada, while it costs roughly 13 to 21 in France for the same data. This is an embarrassment, right? Like, this is an embarrassment, and it really does show the failure of the system. That the system does not work for the benefit of the populace. And a graph like this It's always going to look this way, right? Oh, countries that give a shit about their populaces and attempt to do things to benefit their populaces. Oh, countries that sell their populaces out to corporations. Like, what do you think is happening? And here's the United States, right? So we're in this regard, we're actually worse than the U.S. More and more as we're moving forward here in Canada, we're beginning to see and we're beginning to realize that we aren't actually better than America. That's always been the saving grace for Canadians. We've always been able to say, well, at least we're not America. Well, it's getting to be more and more that we're finding, oh, over here we're actually worse. Oh, over here we're actually worse. Oh, over here we're actually worse. And it's insignificant things, right? Like, we're worse than the United States when it comes to the amount of services we provide for our disabled, right? Like, that's how bad we are at that we give less money to the disabled than Americans do. So in regards to dealing with the disabled, we are less moral than the Americans. Like, we're in a bad spot in a lot of ways. And more I've just come to see that it's because Canadians want it. It's because Canadians want it. Like, we like the abuse. I said it yesterday, and it ended up on the Daily Clip, and I think it's true. I think it's true. I think Canadians like the abuse. I think we get off on it. I think it is kind of turned into a kink shaming sort of situation where we're just like absolutely eating all this shit, and we love it. Like, why else would we tolerate this? Like, why else would we continue doing it? Although, that said, there is a survey that was done fairly recently. This is from the Business Insider. Nearly 3/4 of workers are actively thinking about quitting their job, according to a recent survey. This kind of a thing, like, we're already seeing what's being called the Great Resignation, shows no sign of ending anytime soon. And it's very clearly being very clearly articulated that why would I bother working for a job that keeps me poor? I'll just be poor, right? Why would I also lose my time? And the hospitality industry had the highest share of workers thinking about quitting. That makes total sense. The number one profession that died from COVID was cooks, right? Like, if Anthony Bourdain was still alive, he would perfectly articulate the insanity of this situation. He would perfectly be like, yeah, it's normal to not want to work in a place where you die. Like, that seems pretty clear. According to Jobs List report, low pay and desire for a new career path, which is a good way of saying, I want to do what I am interested in, not what these sociopathic billionaires are interested in, right? And food service workers who left the industry during the pandemic told Insider that the industry has low pay and the customers weren't always friendly. I mean, when you live in a psychopath society, right? When you live in a psychopath society that has geared itself towards the worst possible people that you can find, of course they're not going to be friendly. Like, of course they're going to treat you like you're just an NPC who they can abuse, right? And people are saying, no, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. Like, pay me better. 10 yesterday, now 1 today. What are the chances? Oh, yeah, good point. 1 in 10, I suppose. I think the chances are different because there's actually 2 vectors, right? A 1 and a 10. And so but if it's 2 and 20, then it's actually 1. Anyway, I'm not a mathematician. I think Canadians don't know what to do anymore. Yeah, I think that's right, Ruth. I think that is right. The last election proves that. Everybody just dug their heels in and voted the same way, right? Nobody knew where to go or what to do. 100,000 should go to a welfare office near them for a month and apply for social services. Yeah, like, I am of the opinion that the passage of a basic income is absolutely critical during this period of time. Like the capitalist system has died, right? Like, I keep saying it. The capitalist system has died, and people are no longer willing to work for this shambling zombie corpse, right? And the only reason the corpse is still up and shambling around in the zombie manner that it is because we subsidize it. So, like, we're literally working to pay taxes to subsidize the work that we hate. Right? That's what we're doing. We're literally going to a job we hate to work the job we hate for subsistence level wages at best, to then turn around and pay taxes so that those jobs that we hate doing can be subsidized by our work. Like, it's this vicious nightmare circle, and the whole time the circle is going, surplus value is going off to worthless parasites who are psychopaths and do no work. Like, yeah, we should stop. We should full-scale stop. Like, this place needs not only a full-scale strike, right? We need to completely reconfigure our entire society. There are parasites who are parasiticizing the society. It's become obvious. And I'm glad to see. I'm super over the moon about this. I'm super over the moon that 3/4 of workers are actively thinking about quitting their job. Stop thinking about it. Quit. Just quit. Just take your life back, right? Take your fucking life back. Tell these conservatives and these liberals to get fucked, to go sit on it, right? To go the fuck away. Join a protest movement. Join a strike movement. Start actively fucking these people over because they're psychopaths, right? Like they're literally detached from reality, attempting to destroy you. That's their goal. Like, that's their goal. And I don't know what it's going to take to convince people of this anymore. Like, I don't know what it's genuinely going to take to convince people that we are ruled by psychopaths. Like, it has become beyond obvious. Like, their names are on flights going to a pedophile rape island. They're actively offshoring wealth while lying to you and saying that it'll trickle down. They're telling you to work harder for nothing so that they can get extra money to get a yacht they can park their yacht in, right? Like, these people are psychopaths. Like, I guarantee that they are holding bets with one another about who can hurt more people and who can exploit more people. Like, what do you think Bitcoin is for? Bitcoin exists to exchange sex slaves amongst themselves and to bet money amongst each other about who they can exploit and torture and kill most effectively. These people are psychopaths. Like, yeah, we should quit. The Great Resignation should become permanent. No one should work for these people. They're psychopaths. Like, I don't know what it's going to take at this point. Like, does Jeff Bezos literally need to start walking around with a gun and shoot 12-year-olds? Like, does he need to go out into the street and shoot 12-year-olds in the street for people to finally go, like, maybe we should stop working for this psychopath? Like, is that what it is going to take? Because at this point, that would be, like, the only thing that he could do. Like, he already exploits and burns his people out as a stated agenda. His stated policy is to burn people out. That's his stated agenda. He's already got people pissing in bottles. And all so that he can shoot himself into space on a fucking rocket. Like, that's already happening. What's worse? What could he possibly do that's worse? And so we really, really, like, the question I have is what does it take? What is it finally going to take for these 2/3 of Americans, to 3/4 rather, of Americans to say, yeah, no, like, no, we're done. We're done. The Pandora Papers and the Panama Papers should be the standard, not the GDP statistics. Just think if all these people were not allowed to work for 3 months. Yeah. You would have to be sociopathic to succeed in a society ruled by criminal psychopaths. Quit your minimum wage job today. Like, if I had a kid, like, if I was in a situation where I was working a job and I had a, like, 18-year-old kid, I would outright tell him, your job is to tear this system down. That's your job. That I am going to go work this job because I have no alternative because I'm a wage slave, but I am going to support you with room and board while you go and destroy this system. And that would be the arrangement that I would be saying. The reason why Gen Z is falling into absurdism and isn't actually mobilizing this way is because this arrangement between the millennials, like the millennial boomers and the Gen Z, hasn't been explicitly stated. That we're still in this position where we're looking at the Gen Z kids and being like, oh yeah, they're kind of a disappointment, it's tough times, all this kind of stuff. We should be literally sitting the Gen Z kids down, and we should be saying to them explicitly, hey there, have you noticed how everything's fucked up, Gen Z? Yeah. So we're going to pay for room and board while we grind ourselves into this death machine, because that's what we have to do, so that you can tear this thing down. That's what we're going to be doing from now on. We want you in the streets all the time, fucking everything up. You can't make mistakes. You can't make mistakes. Anything you do is good. And we will actively be saying, as the millennials and the boomers and the Gen X in this conversation, we will actively be saying, yeah, they're tearing it down. There's no wrong answers. Tear something down. It's all bad. There is no redeeming quality here. All of the institutions need to go. They need to be teared down to the earth, and it's up to Gen Z to do it. And we need to support them in that, and we need to explicitly say that that's what we're doing, right? We should be telling 14-year-olds to smash things. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. The idea that we are just gonna, of course they're falling into anxiety and depression, right? Because they see what's coming. The tidal wave is here. It's right here, and they're looking at it, and they're looking at us, and we're going, yeah, what can you do about it? That's what we're doing. When instead we should be saying, yeah, we're going to keep working, but you are the ones that should be tearing this down. I think any other position is nuts. I think you're just out of your minds. So I want to see these 3/4 of workers just quit. Tell these capitalists to get fucked. Tell these psychopaths to get fucked. Tell all the Karens and the Kens to go get fucked. Stop participating. Straight up. Just full stop. Stop participating. I always thought Gen Z absurdism was a reaction to monetization of millennial memes. That's probably a bit of it. In my view, the Gen Z absurdism is very closely linked to the Dadaist movement. That I've talked about the Dadaist movement here before, but the Dadaist movement starts in Eastern Europe as a response to World War I. And the Dadaists, you can see, if you want a really clean example of what Dadaism is as an absurdist movement, just take a look at the Monty Python cartoons. The cartoons that exist throughout Monty Python's work. And Monty Python itself has a great deal of Dadaism, the ending of the Search for the Holy Grail. Well, and the Search for the Holy Grail itself is just an absurdist Dadaist expression, right? But the cartoons are really the essence of Dadaism, because it's just nonsense and absurdism for absurdism's sake. And the seminal statement of the Dadaists was any culture that can produce World War I is a failed culture and just needs to be cleansed, needs to be eradicated. And the way they thought to do it was to just render all of their sacred figures absurd and to make fun of them. And to defang all of the sacredness and all of the royalty and all of the pomp and everything. We were supposed to have such a high auspiced perspective of these monarchical kind of figures, and the Dadaists were just nah, let's take a picture of the Queen and shove it up Mona Lisa's ass, that kind of stuff, and with the objective of completely just washing the society away, cleansing all of this, and creating a new palette from upon which to stand and to move forward. And there have been a lot of European commentators on the Dadaist movement, like Tom Stoppard, for example, who completely missed this point, who completely missed the point of the Dadaist movement, which was to say that the society that produced these world wars is invalid and should be not paid attention to. And I'm to that point now with this society, right? Like what validity has this society? What validity, like what credibility is left? That and there are venerated figures that should be mocked and should be defanged completely. And that process is actually beginning. Like the Founding Fathers, right? The whole like veneration of the Founding Fathers, like what an absurdism to begin with. These guys were genocidal slave owners. Like why are we venerating them at all? Like why are we venerating them at all? So so I think that Gen Z has sort of, not inadvertently, but just like naturally, they've just naturally created a Dadaist movement of a sort because things are so fucking absurd that the only thing left to do is to highlight the absurdity, right? I was thinking about the Monty Python earlier today, specifically the Money Song. I don't know if I know I don't think I could play the Money Song. I once said I'll never work, and someone said, you sound kind of like an incel. Yeah, an incel has become just like a catch-all, right? If you're someone who voices your opinion and you have a critique of your society, you're an incel, right? It's just an insult that people use in order to denigrate people who have opinions, right? Essentially, they're just saying you can't get laid, right? Like that's all they're saying. It's just like what a brutal perspective. I mean, but since when have we ever been kind? Like how many times have people said like love it or leave it, and if you don't like it, move, right? Like that kind of like soft genocidal statement, right? You're literally saying that people who don't hold your exact political views should be forced to relocate. It's like a form of genocide that you're just outright saying to people. Can you imagine the frenzy the rich would be dealing with? No service? No servants? What do you mean I have nobody to service me? What? They should just use their superior work ethics, right? They should just use their superior work ethics and their job creation skills and create those jobs and work them. Like what's the problem here? They got billions of dollars because of their superior work ethics, right? Like I don't understand. Why is this an issue at all, in fact, actually? Like really, when you think about it, like why is this an issue? That the billionaires clearly could just like with their superior work ethics and their job creation abilities, just create jobs and use their work ethics in order to solve this problem, right? Right? But that's happening in the Hamptons already, I read. Can't afford to live there and serve the wealthy. Yeah, like that, and that's part of it. Like I think that there are people who want to be part of the society and who want to work, but they literally can't afford to live in the places where the jobs are because the jobs aren't paying enough. Yeah, the founding racists, exactly. Hey, Ad Gooch. How's that for a name? I hope you're doing well. I don't think I've ever seen you here before, and I hope you're not here to just spread ads around, bud. Although, we'll see. The only hope is justice will prevail. The masses won't do it. We need to use the system as best we can in the meantime. No. The system, especially in America, the system is designed to diffuse the energy that must be done. The only thing that we should be organizing around is mass street protest. Anytime I'm continuously having conversations with people who talk this way, who are talking about like, oh well, we need to interact with the system and get involved in the system, and the system is the way to do it. And I can see their energy being diffused regularly. I can see the excusing, I can see the whinging, I can see the foot shuffling, I can see it. And I ask them very clear questions about like, do you actually think these policies will be passed? Do you actually think these politicians are going to do that? What level of suffering do you think people are going to have to tolerate before these politicians actually pass any of this kind of stuff? And but the reality is that, and you can see that they're being diffused. And so what we have to do is take that energy, and instead of allowing it to be diffused, we need to take to the streets and surround the halls of power. It's literally all we have left. It's literally all we have left. There is nothing left to do. Like, we can't negotiate with them. They're psychopaths, right? You can't negotiate with them. They're going to pander and placate you, right? We've seen the liberals do exactly this in regards to pharmacare. Any other popular policy is going to be exactly the same narrative. That they promise it, and then they don't deliver on it, and then they diffuse the energy until it goes away. Until people just go like, oh, well, and then move on, right? If the only way we're actually going to get these policies done is if the halls of power are surrounded, period. And there is no alternative. Like, there is no alternative. But we do have to convince the populace to do it, right? And it's heartbreaking watching, like, the very people who should be mobilizing street protests are instead mobilizing, like, I don't know what to call what they're doing, right? Like, they'll get people into the streets, but then, like, split everybody up, and, like, everything will be diffused, and they'll have an interview with somebody, and like, what we need is a sustained, long-form, long-term protest movement that occupies the halls of power and refuses to leave. Like, that's what's going to happen. And it is a necessity at this point. Like, we are talking about, like, the stakes could not be higher. Like, these psychopaths are actually interested in destroying this species. And they're not interested in, like, and it isn't inaction, it isn't stupidity, it isn't a lack of foresight, any of that. They are actively deciding on purpose to destroy the species because they want to. That is where we are at. We are at, like, a Skeletor level, like, ah ha 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 ha, like, cackling madmen, actively choosing to destroy the planet on purpose to fulfill their own dark desires. And one of the desires that 100% exists within these wealthy psychopaths is that they refuse to acknowledge the legitimacy of their own death. That the system is designed to kill all of us. We all die because of the system that's in place. And instead of looking at that and honoring it, being humble to it, saying that there is a system in place that I need to be humble to, and I need to acknowledge that the system has such an overwhelming power that it can even destroy my life. Instead of saying any of that, they're saying, well, if it's going to destroy me, I'm going to do as much damage to it on my way out. That is what they are saying, and they don't care if it kills millions of people. They don't care. If they actually wanted to stop this crisis, they could. They easily could. That instead of doing that, they are actively funding campaigns to confuse the populace. They're actively funding denial campaigns. They're actively funding ways to obscure and make the whole thing obtuse. They're actively working to ensure that the crisis maximizes its damage. And the reason why they are doing that is because their conclusion in their psychosis and narcissism is, well, if this thing kills me, then I'm going to try to kill it back. They're evil. Like, they're nightmare creatures. Like, they are on the same level as, like, Adolf Hitler, Skeletor, Voldemort. Pick an evil figure that you have in your mind. When you think evil figure, put it in your head. That's the people who are in charge right now. And the idea that they're not attempting to destroy us, I think at this point has become adorable. Like, of course they're trying to destroy us. Like, of course they are. It's their final act of vengeance. What are you guys saying? You love communism so much, why don't you go to Cuba? Now allow me to pay you so little that you can't afford traveling costs. Exactly, bud. Exactly. Like, as if moving is free, right? As if moving is free. I think the chuds can be grifted with the commie relocation GoFundMe on Facebook. I don't know, dude. Like, I wouldn't mind this. Like, if suddenly the government said, like, hey, there's a parcel of land over here you can move on and live in a communist society, I'd go. What's this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, fuck this. Like, let me go to a parcel of land and become a farmer or a beekeeper, right? Like, I've done beekeeping before. I've done farming before. Like, let's grow a lot of sunflowers and grow some tobacco and grow some blueberries, right? Like, grow some luxury crops, and some food, right? And have like a little communist society where we actually make decisions by talking about it. Okay. We need a global Portland. They did some great protests in 2020. Yeah, Portland. Well, and that's why Portland has become like the ground zero for the Proud Boys, right? That the police and the Proud Boys are obviously working together in Portland, and they're obviously doing this to ensure that another protest movement like that can't take hold. Like, that's very clearly their objective. Hi, you've seen me before, by the way. I tried to bring traffic from other channels because I believe in you. That's a brilliant idea, but they have us over a barrel. Educating people as you is probably best. Yeah, I mean, I am actively trying to get people into the streets. October 18th, 3 o'clock, come to College Square, or College and Yonge, right? If you're here in Toronto, that we're having a protest on exactly these lines, right? It's an anti-poverty protest. There's constantly protests and there's constantly things going on, and I am constantly trying to drive people in those directions. The trouble, of course, with this channel right now is that we're all very dislocated. We're all very separate from one another. Like, everybody lives in a different province or a state, right? It's very rare to get two people who actually live together in this place, which makes sense. Like, I mean, we're just starting, and it's like this channel's only been up for like 4 months, so we're just growing and we're just getting things figured out. And so I always say to people, I always say to everybody, you're the leader of this right now. Like, if you're waiting for the movement to occur, it's not going to happen that way. The thing to do is for you, in your little community, in your society, right? You're the one that needs to make the flyer. You're the one that needs to set the date. You're the one that needs to hold the protest. And when you do that, and nobody comes, because that's going to happen at first, and when nobody comes, you're going to come back into this channel and you're going to cry with me about it. And I'm going to be here to console and stand with you in solidarity, because I know what that's like. I know exactly what that's like, to organize a protest and have nobody show up. Yeah, I know exactly what that's up. So we're here to lick each other's wound. I'm from England and no protests on the mainstream. That's the problem. Well, and what's happening in England is next level shit, dude. Like, that's next level shit. What's happening in England? Like the Brexit. It's being blamed on Brexit, but I mean, what's happening in England is an inevitability for the rest of us. That supply chains are breaking down. That all of this kind of stuff is breaking down as the capitalist death cult stops seeing any benefit in providing these services, right? Like, why bother? Why bother providing these benefits? And why bother? Like, I already have all this money. I'm just going to leave, right? Like, they don't give a fuck at all. So what we're seeing in England, like, and I'm not surprised that there are no protests on the mainstream, as the police force works very hard in England against any kind of protest movement. Anytime I listen to communists from England, anytime I listen to any kind of leftists coming out of England, the major complaint is that it's very clear that the police forces exist explicitly to oppress and to beat people up, like, explicitly. That's their stated agenda. Yeah, wasn't there some new anti-protest legislation in England recently? Yep. Judge in Texas blocked the abortion law in Texas, saying it is constitutionally against the law that women don't get the health care they need. Good. That's a victory. That's a straight up victory, right? Like, that's a straight up victory. And I'm glad to see that kind of thing is actually being upheld, because, like, you literally can't just write a piece of legislation that says the Constitution doesn't exist, right? I was listening to Cody Johnston, which the Some More News guy on YouTube, high advise, big time, definitely watch this guy, and he pointed out that there was literally language in the legislation that said you couldn't use the Constitution against it. Like, literally, they are saying, yeah, the Constitution doesn't exist in this piece of legislation. And it's like, yeah, that's not how it works. Like, you can't pass a law to render the literal Constitution invalid. Like, can you imagine if you could? Like, what's the point of having a Constitution then? I'm surprised the argument was in favor of women's health and not some technicality. Well, the health argument has become more ubiquitous, right? It's become like, it is a women's health issue, right? It is. Big time it is. Like, and my position on abortion, it can't be clearer, right? Like, it's not that big a deal to abort a fetus. It's not that big a deal to abort a baby. Sorry. It isn't. Like, what's their experience? What's the baby's experience, right? The baby's experience is nothing, followed by more nothing, right? Like, there's no... and if you want to think about it, like, if you want to think about it in the Christian way, right, the spiritual way, right, like, you're imagining a spirit who's about to step through a portal, right, and go into this life, right? Spirit, portal, step in, life. And as they step into the portal closes, right? And the spirit goes, oh, and then just turns to another portal and steps through that portal instead. So I just, like, the all of the arguments that are being used by the anti-abortion crowd, I think, have become childish. Like literally, they just have this, like, sunshiny special view of how every baby should be born and every baby, but then completely abandoned afterwards. So even, like, and that reality, the fact that the pro-life crowd isn't working to create support systems, to create a welfare system, to create a system so that the society is actually good for newborns to be born into in the first place, the fact that they're not doing that tells you very explicitly what this movement is actually about. This movement is about oppressing women. That's what it's about, period. It's about finding a way to dominate and control women, period. Full stop. There is no other argument, because all of their other arguments have been discredited. Like, they don't actually, like, very much like neoliberalism, they don't actually have any credibility left. And of course it's a woman's health issue, right? Like, imagine believing that, like, oh, babies just shoot out of there, right? Like, of course it's a health issue. It's a major health issue. You have literally something growing inside of you. Like, of course it's a health issue. Yeah, pro-life my ass. Can't kill them, but can starve and torture them the rest of their little lives, exactly. My position has always been, it's none of my business what a woman does with her body. I get tired thinking about it being my job. Well, and that's the other thing. Like, I'm a straight white male. I don't understand at any point why this should be my, like, obviously this is a conversation that should be had between a woman and her doctor, period. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? And the idea that you can create, like, blanket legislation for something that is obviously extremely complex, like, that kind of thing is, like, this giving birth to a child is extremely complex. Like, think about the complexity of this. And the idea that everything's going to be perfect every time and everything's going to be, like, absolutely hunky-dory and completely lovely, like, it's just childish. It's also a mental health issue. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's I mean, for God's sakes, like, it's the whole thing is intense. And it should be left to the people who are experiencing it, not some fucking legislature. And especially you listen to what some of these guys have said. Like, some of these guys are nightmare psychopaths. Like, one guy said women can... this isn't psychopathic, it's just stupid. One guy literally said that if a woman is raped, she can prevent the pregnancy, right? She can just will the pregnancy away. Like, What the fuck are you even talking about? Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, these types of people need to stop. Need to genuinely need to stop talking. Like, let alone run for office. Oh, hey, buddy, you want more peanut butter? I got some more peanut butter for you right here, buddy. More peanut butter for you right here. Little peanut butter break. Little peanut butter break. He just passed away. That guy. Good riddance. Good riddance. Like, I'm no longer like. There's a lot of guys that when they go, I'm gonna have a little party. Like when George W. Bush goes, like the best news of this last year was when Donald Rumsfeld died. It's like, great, one less demon, like one less evil person living in the world, one less psychopath. Like we should have little parties. We should be pushing for a national holiday to celebrate that these evil demons are no longer part of our society. Like when Harry Potter kills Voldemort, I bet they had a national holiday on that day. We should have a national holiday for when George W. Bush dies, for when Dick Cheney dies. Like when GWB goes, I'm gonna go pee outside. Okay. You could go pee outside right now, bud. Outdoors is, you're supposed to pee outdoors, right? I got this really great story about my little pug. So when I got him, right, when I got my dog, he was 9 months old when I got him, and he had been house trained, which is to say he'd been trained to pee inside, which I'm a rural Manitoba boy. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to have my dog peeing inside. Like, that's dumb. And so I kept taking him out and trying to convince him to pee outside, but it became more and more obvious that like he thought that was bad. He thought that was wrong, and so I kind of imagined that like his owners had kind of trained him to not want to pee outside, and that was negative, and so he had a negative connotation with that. And so finally, we were out in the middle of a park or something, right? And it was like not a park, but like literally like this nook of wildlife. There are all these. In Toronto, there are all of these canals. That's wrong, but there's all these like divoted areas. Why am I blanking on what these things are called? Oh my god! I'm the greatest storyteller ever. Storyteller ever. Toronto is known for these, where you just go into an area and suddenly there's like a valley and it's just filled with trees and you're literally in the middle of a forest and you can't even tell you're in the middle of a city. Anyway, so we're in the middle of one of these little ones. No one else is around. I know Milo has to pee. I know he has to, right? And so finally, I'm just like, okay, dude, you're not getting it. So I'm just gonna drop trow and pee. And I remember I looked at him and I peed and I saw it on his face. He went, "What? We can do that out here? What?" And he immediately went and peed, like instantly. It was just like it was just like a monkey see, monkey do situation, and it's one of the funniest things that's ever happened with this little guy, where he just like he had this idea in his head of what the world was like, and I shattered it. I shattered it with a singular act of peeing outside. And don't you think it's weird that we have this kind of like, oh, you can't pee out. Oh, well, that's very, oh, you can't. Literally, all of nature is peeing outside all of the time, constantly. Like think about all of the wildlife that exists just outside your window now, and recognize that all of it is peeing there, like all of it. But if we do it, oh well. That's true, Ruth. That is true. You got me there. Although I had a partner for 10 years, and she would just be like, gotta pee. Boop. Be free, little guy. Be free. Yeah. It was like a seminal moment in his life, for sure. It was a seminal moment in his life. All right, moving on to some Canadian news. NDP prepared to withhold votes in Parliament, including on the Liberal budget. So this is actually quite a statement by Jagmeet Singh. that he is saying, stating he will not take pretty or nice words for granted, right? The price would be concrete action on NDP priorities, such as extending COVID-19 benefits that are set to expire this month, right? He wants to see a positive signal from Trudeau. They haven't reached out. They haven't signaled they want to negotiate or talk so far. I'm not concerned because they know where we stand. But so what this means is if they withhold their vote, it is possible that it could trigger a vote of no confidence in a minority situation if the budget is not passed with the majority of votes that you need, 170 votes. It triggers a vote of no confidence, which triggers an election, right? And that's pretty precarious political territory. Like, especially given the outcome of this last election, right? That's pretty precarious. Historically speaking, should an early election be called, the party that gets kind of blamed for it is the party that gets completely pilloried in the polls. And so this is ballsy by Singh, in my perspective. The idea that he would actually withhold his vote with the potential of it triggering an election. This isn't to say that other parties won't actually prop up, like the Bloc could, the Conservatives could, right? And the idea that the Conservatives won't, I think is cute, especially if the Liberals just give the Conservatives what they want, which is an end to the benefits that we are all living with right now, right? Like, what we have right now for many, many, many citizens is a form of basic income. That's what we have right now. Whether or not that's going to be made permanent and expanded to, let's say, the homeless population or any of that, only time will tell. But the Liberals want to get rid of it, and so do the Conservatives. So I am more or less of the opinion that like the narrative has always been that it's the NDP who hold the balance of power, but the Liberals and the Conservatives could just finally bro down, right? And why shouldn't they? They're essentially allies. It's just that they don't want to make it as obvious as that, right? I mean, in my view, if the Liberals and the Conservatives actually got together, it would be the end of this Liberal Party, right? Like, the one thing that seems to kill Liberals is once the populace realizes, oh, they are just another Conservative party. Like, they're just with the Conservatives. That is what causes problems for Liberals. So we'll see. We'll see if the NDP are actually grinding on the gears. We'll see what actually happens. But good for Singh coming out and actually saying this, because ultimately the only power that anybody has in an electoral system is withholding votes. That's it. Like, if you're going to vote for them and they know you're going to vote for you, they don't need to pay attention to you at all, right? The masses generally can't think for themselves, especially in England. Daily propaganda on the mainstream. Intelligent people get offended when I point out some of the corruption. What can we do? You just keep telling the truth. That's all you can do. You find the people who see through it, right? And they exist. Certainly they exist. You find the people, you organize with those people, and you understand that the masses are exhausted. Right? They're exhausted, and that the work of finding out what's going on is work. And exhausted, beleaguered, propagandized people can't really do that work. And so it's good to come to a place of forgiveness to members of the populace. But all you can do is find the people who see the truth and organize with them. With a spirit of forgiveness, because the worst thing that happens to leftists is that they splinter. It happens all the time. Leftists constantly splinter with one another. And over petty nonsense. Petty bourgeois, like, bullshit. Like, stuff that literally doesn't matter whatsoever. And yet it continuously happens. It happens with such regularity that's a CIA tactic. Like, the CIA will infect movements with the intention of breaking them apart along petty bullshit lines. Because it's so easy to do. And so Really ask yourself, if you get into a conversation or a conflict with someone, is this worth breaking things up about? And 99.99999% of the time, the answer is obviously not. So if the cons and libs can pass the budget, wouldn't that make the NDP position performative? If the Conservatives and the Liberals do pass the budget? But again, as I said previously, the Conservatives and the Liberals voting together on a budget is a loss for the Liberals big time. Like the Liberals, like we literally abandon the Liberals when they do that kind of stuff. We literally abandon them. And it's not exactly a winning position for the Conservatives either, right? Like the Conservatives are the leaders of the opposition, right? It's not a good look for the leaders of the opposition to vote with the people they're supposed to be in opposition to, right? And while they are both allies with one another to the corporate masters, they still need to perform for the populace, right? And so a conservative-liberal alliance has huge fallout. Like if the Conservatives and the Liberals vote on the same bill, on the same budget, that has huge fallout. There's massive political fallout from that, and they know it. Like they know it. We have abandoned the Liberals before, and we have abandoned the Conservatives before. Like we've done it, and so yeah, imagine what the cons would do if the Tool did that. Exactly. Like if Aaron O'Toole propped up the Liberal budget, very risky, very risky. You're staking your whole career. You're staking your whole career on that vote. Because if it works out, then great, but it very much could blow up in your face. And people can and then anytime there's like a liberal scandal or the Liberals do something that conservatives really hate, you can always say, yeah, but your guy propped it up. Like your guy voted for it. So yeah, they're both trying to consolidate power right now. Exactly. Well, and so are the NDP, right? Like that the NDP knows who's voting for them. They're aware that they are a working class movement. They're aware that these COVID benefits, as they're being called now, are a lifeline for people. And moreover, they're aware that like we could very easily end up in the same situation as the Americans. Like we could easily do that. It would happen very fast. Like you eliminate these COVID benefits and you're going to see a big spike in homelessness. You're going to see a lot of evictions. You're going to see a big decline in the civil society, right? Yeah, PPC might do even better if the cons back the libs. Exactly, Major. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, right? That the fracturing of the Conservative Party will continue, and people will begin joining the more radical sort of position. Okay, so I kept coming for the position there on the side of capital. Yeah, forget the political identity performance stuff. Yeah, well, it's a lot of showmanship. There's a lot of theatrical stuff going on. That the Conservatives and the Liberals really do have the same goals and they work for the same agenda, but they can't actually back one another. It'd be like if Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant suddenly joined forces for no reason to beat up Macho Man Randy Savage. Like the audience would be quite confused by that, and there would need to be some kind of a story to go that way. But And that kind of thing does happen, but usually when it does happen in storytelling, it means that someone like Hulk Hogan becomes the heel, right? And Hogan's done that before; he's become the heel, but in this situation, if both the Liberals and the Conservatives become the heel, well, then you start voting for a hero, and in this case, a hero could be the PPC, it could be the NDP. Very risky, very, very risky. That this arrangement of having the Liberals and the Conservatives passing the ball back and forth to one another is useful and needs to be maintained. So you can't end up with both of those forces on the same side, right? they have to always be in opposition, even if that opposition is primarily performative. So Singh coming out and saying, like, raising the stakes, right? This is what this is. He's raising the stakes, and he's making very clear what his position is, right? Extending COVID benefits that are set to expire this month, right? Like, extend those. Like, extend the COVID benefits that are set to expire this month. Like, there you go. If you don't put that in the budget, I don't see any reason to support you. And we could be heading back to the polls about it, right? We could have another month-long campaign about it, right? And hopefully this time around, the NDP actually start talking about a basic income, start talking about these benefits. Like, I was very shocked to see that Jagmeet Singh wasn't more explicit in talking about these kinds of things. Like, it's very interesting to me that Jagmeet is being so tepid on actually getting something permanent passed that could actually be of benefit to a socialist movement or to a workers' movement generally. Like, it's very surprising to me that he's willing to say something like we should raise taxes on the wealthy, but he's not willing to say so that we can create permanent support structures. Singh probably taking in the info given by voters. Yeah. Well, and honestly, Singh needs to swing hard. Like, and Singh is the only one who actually gained voters. That's important to know. Sure, he only gained one seat. He didn't get the big swell up that I think people were hoping he would get, but he still was the only guy to gain voters outside of the PPC, right? So if you're the Liberals, the Conservatives, the Greens, or the Bloc, you've lost support. You've lost voters, right? But if you're the NDP and the PPC, you've gained. And so now is a time where Jagmeet Singh can actually be bold, right? He can actually be bold. I just want him to actually be bold. And he's really not hitting the mark when it comes, like, he needs to be scaring the shit out of these capitalists. Like, he needs to be saying, like, we are going to tax the wealthy and use that to create permanent support systems so that people are not beholden to a system that actively abandons them in the first place, right? We need to create a system that actually supports people's lives. We need to create a system that actually allows people to live successfully here in Canada. First and foremost, that should be the primary position of any leader. Like, what kind of a leader is actively attempting to throw you into homelessness? What kind of a leader is actively attempting to ensure that you have to choose between buying food or paying for electricity? Like, what kind of leader is doing that? Well, that would be the Liberals and the Conservatives. Because the Liberals and Conservatives are doing everything they can to sell you back to the capitalist death cult. Like, the only reason they passed these policies in the first place was out of fear for themselves. That's it. Right? That's it. And since the Liberals passed the CERB, they've been trying to do everything they could to get rid of it. Right? They've broken it apart into many different facets, many different things, so that they can attack it, like divide and conquer, pretty straightforwardly, right? And the Conservatives outright said they would have never passed such legislation. Like, this is what happens when you're ruled by psychopaths, right? That, like, when your owners become psychopathic, which they have to be scientifically, that's just the truth. Right? When you have enormous wealth, you lose your ability to have compassion and empathy, right? You become psychopathic. If you're ruled and owned by psychopaths, well, what are they going to do? They're going to surround themselves by people who talk and think the way that they do, right? And so it's no surprise whatsoever that our leadership has become more psychopathic, right? The Conservatives outright saying that they would abandon large swaths of the population, including their base, by the way. Like, this is the thing. Like, this is the thing that I keep saying, and people, like, I can tell that it doesn't quite attach in, but, like, these guys are abandoning their own children. Like, they do not give a fuck at all. Period. Full stop. That if Aaron O'Toole was to get into office and act the way that he says he was going to act, the primary people who would eat it the first group of people who would eat it would be his own voters. His own voters would get fucked over. Completely. And these poor rural farmer types who would vote for Aaron O'Toole, who would absolutely turn around and fuck him over, right? And any conservative will, right? Because they only need your vote. After they have your vote, they can do what they like. You can see that with Kenny. You can see that with Ford. You can see that with Pallister, right? You can see that with Harper. This is how conservatives operate. And liberals are steadily revealing that they're no different, right? That the only real difference between conservatives and liberals is the little pride flag. That's it. So we could very well have an election on our hands coming up. We'll see. So I'm gonna play some songs. It's time to play some songs. My little pug is starting to whine at me a little bit, so music soothes the savage beast, as they say. I'm going to start with the one that we all know. Please feel free to sing along. Sing along at home. And Ad, I don't think you've ever heard this song, so this is a real treat. I love playing this song for first-timers. Masons are very real. Unfortunately, he's probably in the same gang. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting any attention. Yeah, there is that, too. Like, that sing, to be determined, right? Like, has sing been bought? We'll see. So, this song I call the Care Bears Stare against neoliberal capital. I think if everybody started singing this song and everybody started to know the words and hum this tune, there's absolutely nothing the neoliberals could do about it. Because one of their big successes is not having not allowing an articulated vision of the future to manifest itself. And this song's got just that. This is called Antarctica is Covered in Ice. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm old? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes and sweeps me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, No one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy. And wouldn't that be nice when everybody's safe? No one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy. And wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy. And wouldn't that be nice? And I believe that we can do it. The solution to this problem could not be easier. The fallout from stopping what we're doing would be easier to deal with. In enormous ways, it would be easier to deal with than continuing the fight against the earth. That this place was a garden before we got here. The earth wants it to be a garden. It created a garden, and that is where we came from. And if all we did was stop, we would stand back and bear witness to the abject miracle of the earth healing itself. And if we want to be here to witness that miracle, all we have to do is stop. Man. I've got another song that's been sitting here this whole time. I wrote this song yesterday. So please forgive me if I struggle. Love, mate, record it as a vid on your channel. I play it and share it. Respect. Thanks, Ad Gooch. I appreciate that. I do need to get my act together and actually record this stuff. I do need to get together and record it. The reason why I haven't, and I know why I haven't, is because I really don't want to sell it. I think that's what it comes down to. I know that I have to, and I know that I should, and I really don't want to. But I think I just need to bite the bullet and just record it anyway, and just get it done. And I'm just worried that because I know that that's the case, that the purity won't come through. But we're all doing what we gotta do. Okay. Here's another great song. I made it yesterday, so forgive me if there's sputtering or stuttering or I need to stop and do all this kind of stuff. The song is still settling in and working itself out. But I want to share this one. And yeah, I just want to share this one. Okay. These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt, and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. The tears they stream upon his face, for once his mind is clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to smooth your soul. And should it come to arguing, she forgives and lets it go. And when I cry, she holds me close and says it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march out to the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the sky, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, with victory we'll cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. My mom's alive, by the way, just so you all know. But I know that there's gonna be a moment, and I know that it's gonna come sooner than I'd like, where I'll finally say goodbye. And I know that it'll just be me, that I'll be the old one. That's the thing about life, eh? Like, you start little and you look up the whole time, right? And as you go, your perspective turns, right? That you become your parent, and then you become the elder, and there is no one. It's just, they're now your ancestors who are gone. And that shifting perspective and the look occurs, that you do become your parents, and then as they do, you find your way out the door. And yesterday we were talking a lot. DJ was in the chat, and we were talking a lot about First Nations and respecting ancestors and respecting the people who have come before you. And I feel like this song does just that. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I was worried about the higher vocal register. You guys know a lot of my music is in the lower one, but that's what happened with this tune. Like, you listen to me talk about music, and that's a Bumbleguppy. What you're struggling or stumbling on about something about me. I'm glad to hear that, John. I'm glad to hear that. That's very sweet of you. That's very sweet of you. One of the things about me is, like, I don't play in genre. Like, I don't play in genre. Like, I have a very spiritual view of music. And the higher register just is what came out. That's the spirit that came by. And so to honor it, that's what I've done. I tried to do it in a lower register, and it was worse. It was worse. It was just not the same song. It was different. Well, there you go, Major. And my feeling is that if it sets me to crying, then it's probably going to do the same to you. Well, everybody go call your mom. Let her know that you love her. And if you can't do that, then say a little prayer. Because one of the things, like this COVID experience has led us to a place of isolation, right? We've all seen these stories. How there are grandparents who haven't seen their grandkids, newborn grandkids, all of this sort of stuff. We know that we've been isolated from one another, and I have been isolated from my own parents, certainly. Haven't physically seen my parents since well before the pandemic. They both live in Manitoba, and so I think of a song like this, and this song is a roller coaster, dude. This song is a real roller coaster. It like starts in a dark place, literally has a chapter about war, and then a passage about my mom directly, which is, I think, very sweet. And then finally, it ends celebratory, the inevitability of our victory. And that when that victory comes, we'll all be saying, man, I wish the people who came before us were here to see this. I hope they're all looking down on us and smiling. One of the things that I heard not that long ago was people were asking, like, where's all the protest music? Like, during the 60s and 70s, there was enormous amounts of protest music. And people were like, well, where is it? And I'm going to tell you where it is. It's getting poured into your lattes at Starbucks. That's what's happening, right? It's very obvious that the people who are responsible for creating the protest movement are exhausted, and they're pouring all their creativity into lattes at Starbucks. All of the music that I have now, I have made since I was let go from my job. All of it. And we don't subsidize the arts. We don't subsidize artists. We don't allow kids the opportunity to make bands and actually produce music. We don't give people those opportunities at all, right? So I hopefully I'm seizing this and making a good album here. I am getting to the point where I've got like an album. Like, how many songs do I got? I've got, that's one. I've got this tune, but I haven't actually like made a song about it. I've just got the poetry. Let me read this one out loud. I love this, and I am going to put this to music soon. This place is bubbling over, the money you can keep. I'd rather while my days away dying in the street than spend another moment sucking up to you. Take this job, put it up your ass, and this is what you'll do. And here's the chorus. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out. Go away. And it just kind of goes from there. I'm going to do that tonight, right after this stream. My brother had a band called DQYDJ. Don't quit your day job. Jeez Louise. Okay. I got to get on with the stream. Sorry, I'm trying to do a quick count here. Yeah, I probably got 6 songs now. I think 6 would be a fine number to fall on. Some of them not finished. Some of them. I got one tune called "Thank God We've Got That Billionaire," but I didn't feel the spirit of it. You know, it was just an idea that I started to follow, and you start to sit down and work on this stuff, and if the spirits don't come, then they don't. Anyway. Think Ontario needs Highway 413? Then vote for me, Doug Ford says. In new ads. Like, this is how stupid Doug Ford thinks we are. And we are pretty stupid. For those of you who don't know, here in Ontario, there is the 401. The 401 is the most traversed highway in North America. Okay? Like, think about that. Right? Think about that. Like, places, it's not places like Manhattan. It's not places like Los Angeles. Right? It's here in the city of Toronto. Highway 401 is the most traversed highway in North America. Okay? So what happened under Mike Harris is that we created a highway called the 407. And it's just north of the 401. And it's not far. Like, it's not far. So it would have operated very explicitly as a relief lane, for sure. And so what did the Mike Harris administration do? Well, they put a toll on it, which no one complained about the toll. Okay? Everyone was like, oh, a toll, right? That's fine. That'll help pay for the highway, right? And other services and all this kind of stuff. And then Mike Harris, literally on his way out, privatized the tolling and privatized the highway. So now nobody uses it because everybody knows, first of all, people want to avoid tolls in the first place, but everybody knows that the money is just going into the pocket of some fucking parasite. And so they don't want to pay the toll. And so what do people do? They sit in traffic on the 401. And so now Doug Ford is attempting to introduce a piece of legislation or a new highway, the 413, that nobody wants. Nobody is interested in this highway being built. And why is Doug Ford trying to build it? Because all the land on the highway has been bought by capitalists because they're going to run the same grift, and they know they're running the same grift. They know they're doing it, right? Doug Ford's playlist is Mike Harris's playlist. Like, it's not different. And yeah, more than like the I-10 or the I-80. Yep, exactly. It is wild. Well, it's because there are so many suburban neighborhoods around Toronto. You got Vaughan, Barrie, Whitby, Pickering, a whole bunch. And they all funnel into Toronto, right? Why? To do stupid work that everybody hates so that we can turn around and subsidize it. Like, it's wild because it's fundamentally stupid. Like, it's fundamentally stupid what we're doing. As a species, as a people, right? It's fundamentally dumb. Oh, man, guys, I'm so glad I played that song, I Wish My Ma Was Here. I'm so glad I played that song for you guys. I was feeling a bit touch and go about it. I was feeling a bit touchy about it, but then I played it for you, and I really realized, like, no, this is a good song. This is a good song. You gotta play songs for people. You gotta play for people, right? If you listen to comedians talk a lot about what about a train along the original highway? Well, I mean, one would assume that like the GO train would do that, right? But you got to remember, guys, like I really hate it when people do this. When people are posting things on the internet being like, this is what we're doing and we should stop, or here's a solution, right? These politicians are not interested in that. They're not interested in solutions. They're not interested in reform. They're not interested in any of that. They're interested in money for themselves. They're interested in wedging themselves between the populace and their needs so that they can make money for themselves. The only reason Doug Ford is suggesting Highway 413 at all, period, full stop, is so that he and his buddies can make a lot of money. That's it. Like, nobody needs the highway. Nobody wants the highway, right? You know what he should do if he was actually interested in helping? He would, at the very least, nationalize the 407, right? At the very least, he would nationalize the 407. Because if you just nationalize the 407, then that means all of the money that you're making from the tolls that are along the 407 would actually go into the public coffer and could actually be used to help with public services and things like this, right? Happy birthday, Mr. Putin. It's Putin's birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Putin. How old is Putin now? How old is Putin? How old is Putin? 69, baby. 69. Hey, here you go. This is the glory year, man. This is what you work for. This is what you work for. I know for myself, I'm working to get to 69. Because 69, that's going to be a good year, right? That's going to be a good year. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to make that year the best possible year that I can for myself. And, like, the people who are truly blessed are the people who are going to turn 69 in 2069. Like, those people, like, what a great, I get, if you're born in the year 2000, right? So not only do you get to be born in the year 2000, you get to turn 69 on the year 69. What a blessed year. What a blessed life. That's so nice. That's so nice. Thank you for sharing, Mock. That's very nice. The Putin is such an interesting figure to me, man. I've read more than a couple of things that have shown that he seems to actually be modestly interested in ameliorating some of the suffering in his own society. I wonder how much of that is done just cynically. But anyway. All I know right now is that in Russian politics, he finally, there is an actual opposition movement happening to Vladimir Putin. So that'll be interesting to see if that manifests itself in a meaningful way. All right. Minority government. Working people can block austerity through mass mobilization. This is from the People's Voice, right? The unwanted election campaign called by the Liberals to secure a majority government has resulted in another Liberal minority and almost no change to the balance of forces in Parliament. I mean, you're starting to see more and more articles like this come ahead. Let's just get down to the bottom line. The election result prevented big business from imposing its will unconstrained on Parliament and the country. Sounds familiar? Sounds like something this guy's been saying? However, this breathing spell will be short-lived unless the labor and democratic movements mobilize to oppose the corporate austerity agenda that is just around the corner. And that has the support of both Liberals and Tories and possibly others as well. This austerity agenda is also supported by the PPC, which will be campaigning for it outside of Parliament while simultaneously attacking the government and those to the left of it, including the Communist Party with anti-communist lies and slurs. This is the challenge ahead. Central Executive Committee, Communist Party of Canada. The Communists seems to be building power. The Communists seem to be building power. I need to start working a little bit harder to try to get these people on this channel and try to get them interviewed. That's my goal. That's my goal. But I'm just one man. I'm just one man, goddammit. And what can I do? Except do what I do. Do you know how much CEO pay has skyrocketed since 1978? 100%? 50%? Try 1,322%. This is unsustainable. Robert Reich, I have the same critique of Robert Reich as I have for Noam Chomsky. What these guys should be calling for are open public protests. It is all that's left. And Robert Reich has been a strong voice in the conversation, but the reason why I don't use him as an example, why I don't direct people to Robert Reich, is because ultimately his solutions are to diffuse power into the power structure. And that's no longer sustainable. Like, that's no longer doable. Like, in America especially, it's impossible to elect even a reformist into power in America. It's just not possible. And the only solution left is mass mobilization and mass protest. And Robert Reich isn't calling for it. Just like Noam Chomsky, like they're just not calling for it when they are exactly the people who should be calling for it. And especially when it comes to like Noam Chomsky, I'm very confused why he isn't. And moreover, I'm very confused why people aren't asking him why he isn't. That if I were to do an interview with Noam Chomsky, this is what I would be talking about. I wouldn't bother talking with him about what's happening, right? I think that that's been well trodden, and he's done very good work on that. And if you want to listen to him talk about that, he will. There's already a million videos and a million people asking him that. The question that I would begin with him would be, do you think we must take to the streets in protest? Why? Yes, no. And how do we actually do that and mobilize and in meaningful ways to do that? That's the only thing I think I want to hear Chomsky talk about any longer, because I've listened to most of his stuff already, and he's brilliant. Everybody should listen to Noam Chomsky. And even if you find things that you disagree with, and even if you're like, yes, no, over here, all that kind of stuff, the breadth of his knowledge and the breadth of his work alone means that he has to be part of your intellectual, the intellectual landscape that exists within you. I'm starting to see. Here's a conspiracy theory that I got going for you guys. I'm on many subreddits, right, on Reddit, and Reddit is like one of the largest news aggregates that exists, and there are many subreddits, and one of the ones that I was a part of, and I still am a part of it technically, is called International Left, and they keep releasing like things that are true, and they keep platforming leftists and all of this kind of stuff. One day I just get banned from it. And I've sent them several messages and been like, "Hey, what's this?" It's not. I don't even really post there. I don't comment there. I just literally watch basically. And I've never gotten any feedback whatsoever from those guys. They just banned me, and that was the end of the conversation. And I've noticed that out of this subreddit is coming anti-Chomsky rhetoric. And when I look at the rhetoric, it's usually a misunderstanding of what he's saying or a conflagration of what he's saying. And I genuinely think that this subreddit exists in order to gain credibility with leftists in order to discredit the leftists of the past. Right? That, of course, the CIA is going to work to discredit Noam Chomsky's body of work. Like, of course they're going to do that. Right? That the mainstream media refuses to platform Chomsky in the first place. And so, of course, they're going to work to discredit him. And one of the ways that the CIA and these operations are going to use to discredit figures like Noam Chomsky is to create communities that claim to be leftists, and in fact even will be on the left in terms of current events and all of this, while simultaneously demonizing the leftists of the past. And if you can't demonize them, then you try to co-opt them for your own movement. The way that the libertarians did with Martin Luther King, right? Ben Shapiro keeps quoting Martin Luther King, right? As if Ben Shapiro isn't like an enormous, violent racist. So that's just a conspiracy theory, though, but all the pieces seem to fit. And more I'm seeing a concerted effort to discredit people like Parenti, people like Chomsky, while they can't fight back, because they're dead. Open protest equals the far right breaks AutoZone windows. Leftists have to be highly disciplined, and we saw Black Lives Matters wasn't up to the challenge. The media focuses on the 0.1% of bad actors. Can I actually tell you, here, grinning guys? Okay, I'll do it. I'm going to wade into the weeds on this. I don't. I'm going to begin this conversation by saying I do not support people doing acts of violence or smashing property or anything. I don't support it. I don't do it. I don't think people should do it. All of that. That said, I completely understand why people do it, and I forgive them completely. I don't think that they're bad people. I don't seek to demonize them. I don't even think that we should charge them with a crime. If you don't want people to riot and smash property, maybe don't murder people. Like, it's a very straightforward proposition, right? If you don't want people to riot and smash things, maybe don't abandon them, right? Maybe convince them that there is credibility in the society and that the structures and these things are worth maintaining, right? Maybe convince people that a target is actually valuable, right? But people are getting to the point now where, like, none of this has any validity, right? And when people are saying smash the system, there are people who mean that in the abstract, and there are people who mean that literally, right? Well, and my position on this, I get the diversity of tactics, but it's hard. It's a hard media message to combat. I just think we should Tyrion Lannister it, right? Just Tyrion Lannister it. Just absorb it, right? This is what they're going to call it. Like, it's what I've done, right? Do you know why I call myself a communist? It's because people started calling me a communist because I would stand up and be like, "Why are there poor people?" Be like, "Oh, you commie," and so eventually I was just like, "Okay, I'm a commie. Now what? Why are there poor people?" Right? Like, if you take the worst things they say about you and you just absorb it, you use it as a shield, then they can't attack you with it any longer, right? And I think the same thing should be of the idea of these riots. Like, yeah, well, you murdered somebody in the street, so, like, if you don't want people to riot and smash things up, maybe don't impoverish people, right? It's very straightforward. Like, it's very straightforward. And I think we can talk about it as cleanly as that. That they'll be like, and you can't, and literally you just turn around and you're like, you're abandoning people into homelessness and poverty. What do you want them to do? And that's it. That's the whole conversation, right? Like, these guys that are more worried about private property and public damage instead of literally a society that abandons people into homelessness and starvation, right? Like, these people don't need to be taken that seriously. Their points are not that credible, right? We should care about the homeless more than we care about your windows. Like, it's very, very straightforward. And I'm so sick and tired of people, like, glad handing it. Just being like, all these leftists are like, now let's, and I'm gonna, and let's, and okay, and fuck that. So your windows got smashed. See that homeless guy? Right? That's the abomination. You crying about these smashed windows really shows that you don't give a fuck about this guy at all. Like, you don't care about this person even a tiny, tiny little bit. And in fact, you actually think he should be on the streets. Like, I don't like it, to me, it's like Darth Vader being like, "Oh, they blew up the Death Star." That's what it is. "Oh, they blew up the Death Star. Oh, everybody, they blew up the Death Star. I can't believe they blew up the Death Star. Oh, choke a guy to death with the Force." Right? Like, that's kind of what it's like. Thoughts on Doug Ford trying to run to the left of the Ontario NDP through his ads? What are you talking about? Hold on. I haven't seen this ad, bud. What are you talking about? We are communists? Hold on. What the fuck? Doug Ford, we are communists? What's in Doug Ford's new budget? No. Doug Ford's new ads. Ontario crumbled with Kathleen Wynne and Steve Del Duca. Yeah, PC ad targeting the Liberals. I think that both the Conservatives and the Liberals are seeking to just get rid of the Liberals right away. Like just get them out of the conversation. Ford Nation. As you can see, I don't subscribe, nor do I think
Back
you should.
from LA, the Oscars and Jimmy Kimmel. Let me tell you.
It's got to be Ford Nation, right? Oh, no. Ford Nation is no longer We Are the Party saying yes. Really? You're the party saying yes. Oh, okay. How embarrassing for him to say that.
I hear it all the time. Politicians are famous for finding reasons to say no. That's not me. I'm Doug Ford, leader of the Ontario PCs, and we're the party saying yes. Yes to more opportunity, bringing more workers into skilled trades. Yes to building highways you can drive on so you don't sit in gridlock. Yes to building homes more families can afford. We're the only party looking to the future, and we're ready to build.
Authorized by the CFO.
What
of the
a
Ontario
fucking
PC
embarrassment. What a grift. You've got to be a moron to believe any of this. Like Doug Ford is completely emblematic of what makes a successful conservative. Step 1, lie. Step 2, lie. Lie. No, it's not even saying yes to bad stuff. Doug Ford has done more cuts here in Ontario than all of his predecessors combined. I don't know if that's 100% true, but just like the scale of his cuts cannot be overstated. Like the amount of cuts are enormous. The idea that the Ford administration is saying yes and is ready to build is a complete and total joke. You have to be completely thick to actually think that Doug Ford is interested in building anything outside of his own personal fortune. You've got to be completely thick to think that Doug Ford is interested in helping anybody, right?
I hear it all the time. Politicians are famous for finding reasons to say no.
Yeah, that's Doug Ford, right? Like the famous politician that Doug Ford is talking about for the politicians are famous for finding reasons to say no is Doug Ford, right? Like all of Doug Ford's cuts. Here's the Ford tracker, right? You can track all of the fucking stuff that he's done, right? You can track all of the shit, and this isn't even the one I'm familiar with. Here you go. Stop Ford cuts. This is the one I'm familiar with, right? Like you've got all of the Ford, all the cuts that Ford has done. No, there we go. Right? Autism, healthcare, municipalities, workers' rights, education. You've got great articles like the one that came out. This is in Fashion Magazine, for Christ's sakes. Like Fashion Magazine is reporting on it. Canceled the 10-year contract, public wages. They're really burying it, man. Like this guy cut 700, ending the transition child benefit. Cut millions to artificial intelligence. Cut 70% of provincial funding to the resource center here, cut annual cut, but they're really burying this. But you can see cut after 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 cut. He's cut 700 programs to help with student loan, to help with climate change, right? Cut free tuition for low-income students, right? Like cut $25 million in funding for specialized school programs. Canceled Ontario Arts Council funding. Hi, I'm an artist. Get fucked. Right? I literally was planning on going back to school until Doug Ford came in and just completely destroyed that. It's literally the reason why I wasn't able to go back to school was because of Doug Ford. Right? And so just the canceled rent control in new buildings, 3 provincial watchdog positions and more. Like, it's an enormous laundry list of things that Doug Ford has cut. So this idea that anyone other than him is the one that's responsible for this famous politician saying no being other than him is a joke. And if you believe this, you're thick. It's very straightforward. Like, it's extremely straightforward.
To say no. That's not me.
Yes, it is.
I'm Doug Ford, leader of the Ontario PCs, and we're the party saying yes. Yes.
Like, so they're just grifters, right? And make no mistake, every shot you're seeing here is actors. Everything you're seeing here are paid actors. Doug Ford does not walk around with workers like this. Doug Ford is not like looking at what this person is doing. These are actors. Like this image that he's creating. Doug Ford understands that all Canadians see is the image. They don't lift up the floorboards and look at the rot beneath.
Yes to more opportunity, bringing more workers into skilled.
So yes to more opportunities, bringing more workers into skilled trades by cutting funding for school.
Trades. Yes to building highways you can drive on so you don't sit in grid.
Yes to building highways you can drive on so you don't sit in gridlock instead of just utilizing the 407 that's right there. Like, the 407's right fucking there. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for people to get their heads out of their asses about this stuff. Like, here's the 401. Here's the 407. Right? The proposed 413 is, like, up here. Like, you want to actually do something about this, dude? Like, here's the 401. Here's the 407. Nationalize the 407. Use the tolls. Maybe put a toll on the 401. Right? Use the tolls in order to help fund for projects in Toronto. But that's not what Doug Ford is interested in. He's interested in money for himself. That's what he's interested in.
Gridlock. Yes to building homes more families can afford.
Like, there is nothing more bullshit than this line. Yes to building more homes that families can afford. But, of course, billionaires will just buy them. So, get fucked. Like, the Ford administration and Doug Ford has staked its claim on lying. Doug Ford told bald-faced lies to get into office. People asked him very straightforwardly, to his face, on camera, are you going to do X? And he said no, and then he did it. Instantly. In the case of the basic income trials, it literally was the first thing he did. The first thing he did after he lied about it and said that he wasn't going to. So the fact that we should listen to any of this...
Looking to the future, and we're ready to...
We're looking to the future, and we're ready to build? No, they're ready to put money in their own pockets. That's what they're ready to do.
Authorized by the CFO for the Ontario PC Party.
I mean, we'll see. It in my view, it literally does come down to... it comes down to the campaign that the NDP run. That the NDP ad that they released against Del Duca was actually quite good. And I did a video about it. Let's take a look at this one.
Remember life under Kathleen Wynne? Stephen Del Duca wants to take us back. He was Wynn's right-hand man when they sent your Hydro bill skyrocketing, sold Hydro One, all while Liberal insiders got rich. He sat in cabinet while good-paying jobs fled the province, remained idle while creating only 611 new long-term care beds, leaving our most vulnerable unprepared for the pandemic. Ontario crumbled under Kathleen Wynne and Stephen Del Duca. Let's not go back. Authorized by the CFO for the Ontario PC Party.
This is essentially a riff on the NDP ad that was released about a year ago, and the NDP ad was actually better. Ontario NDP. The Ontario NDP ad was actually way, way better. Oh, come on, Ontario NDP caucus, 333 survivors. That means it's not. Come on, guys. Like, you gotta have a place where your videos actually go. Ontario NDP Liberal ad. Oh, come on. This is what I'm talking about, man. Like, basic organizational shit. Like, I'm trying to find your ad. Like, come on. Stephen Del Duca. All right, here we go. Here we go.
This guy? He's got...
Here, hold on. Straight up from the music,
He's gotta go.
right? Like, from the music.
This guy? He's gotta go. But this guy thinks the job belongs to him. You might not remember his name, but you'll never forget his record as Kathleen Wynn's right-hand man, making big cuts and bad choices together, slashing healthcare, and sending your hydro bill through the roof. Now he wants to be premier, to do it all again. Stephen Del Duca, back for power, not for you.
It seems as though the Conservatives, both the Conservatives and the NDP, are agreeing that the first thing to do is to put your boot on the back of
Progressives and the Democratic Party staged a collective show of force against the two Senate moderates.
Go it. The, and go it. Like, these are essentially the same ad in my perspective. Let's take a look at what they have to say about the NDP, though.
Andrea Horvath is a politician that says one thing and does another. She talks about tackling the housing crisis, but opposes building more homes. She says she stands with workers, but...
So already here's the grift, right? No to building new homes, because we don't need to. We don't need to build new homes. We have all of the homes we need. We have everything we need already. We don't need to build new homes, right? We have them.
She stands with workers, but supports job-killing red tape. She talks about how expensive everything is, but plans to raise your taxes. She says she's against gridlock, but opposes building new highways.
Like, you're seeing the grift, right? Like, you're seeing the grift. It's really, really obvious that it's a grift. That, like, I'm opposed to building new highways we don't need, that nobody wants, that's obviously a grift to steal money from the populace. No to lower taxes. Yeah, because taxes have never been lower. Like, there's a reason the society is falling apart.
Your taxes. She says she's against gridlock, but opposes building new highways. Ontario NDP's Andrea Horvath, a politician that says one thing and does another.
So they're just they're trying to paint her as duplicitous and two-faced, right? Like, and which is hilarious because that's exactly what they are, right? That the strategy of these conservatives has become just lie. Like, just lie. Like, don't try to spin it. Don't try to create, like, take your position and put it in its most positive light. That's one thing, right? These guys are outright just lying. Like, just lying. And it's embarrassing because it's so transparent. And, like, the idea that the people who are voting conservative think that the conservative government is going to turn around and, like, help them with any of this stuff. Like, so what if they build the 413? It's not going to do anything. And they're going to privatize it, right? Like they did with the 407. Like, we really are dealing with a group of people who are just, like, maliciously stupid. Like, I don't know how else to describe these guys at this point. Like, they're maliciously dumb. I don't think Vietnam allows candidates to do these types of ads. Well, and what you're seeing here is the failure of multi-party democracy, right? That the failure of multi-party democracy is that instead of having, like, one democratic structure that everybody gets into and discusses issues as a community, right? And you erect things like this way and have discussions and have, like, a democratic process, and that there is, like, an education base. Like, we do not educate politicians about what an economy is, for example, right? And because we don't educate our politicians and because we don't educate our journalists about what an economy actually is, grifters can come in very easily and spin a grift. And there is no institution, like, there's no institution of democracy in order to be, like, to set the stage and say, okay, this is actually what your society looks like. This is actually what is happening in your society. And you see that, you see the consequences of this. Like, go watch some of the budget committees under Bernie Sanders, right? So Bernie Sanders is the head of the budget committee in the United States, and you have people coming and talking in the budget committees who very obviously do not know what an economy looks like, and then on top of that, don't know what the structure of their own system looks like, and then also refuse to believe what they're told about it, right? So you've got like this trifecta of proud ignorance, where I don't know what an economy even is in the abstract. I don't know what the society we actually have looks like for real, nor do I want to believe what I am told about it at all, right? And they generally and genuinely think that like my home budget is the same as the government, which is like, no. And so because there's no like education institution for people to come through and actually learn the structure of their society, all you have are these three, and in the case of the United States, two bickering parties that come in and countervene one another, right? So one party comes in and does a whole bunch of things, and then the other party comes in and dismantles them, right? So it's like one step forward, two steps back, right? Constantly. And so you end up with a society that is at odds with itself always, right? You end up with a society that a house divided cannot stand, right? A house divided cannot stand, and the system of multi-party democracy ensures that your house will always be divided, right? And that you can create alternative worldviews that are not rooted in any kind of reality whatsoever, as long as they're popular, right? And you don't need to ever be confronted with the fact that what you're saying is nonsense, right? You don't ever need to actually deal with anybody being like, that's actually not how anything works. Like, you never need to do that. All you need to do is get swept into power, and you can sweep everything away, right? Erect whatever you like and do whatever you like. Doesn't matter how crazy it is, right? Fill your own pockets with money. Be as corrupt as you possibly want. And then another party comes and sweeps you away and does the same thing, right? And so you have like a bipolar incoherence that arises from multi-party democracies that ultimately gets swept away completely when a tyrannical figure shows up and finally gets tired with all this democracy shit and I want to rule forever, right? Hitler did that. That's likely going to happen in America fairly soon, where they'll just do away with the democratic process entirely. And the systems that seem to be stable, the democratic systems that actually seem to be stable, are single-party democracies. Single-party democracies mean that when you get into the structure of the democratic system, right, sure, there's going to be factions within it, but ultimately all parties are working for the same interests, and that interest is the benefit of the populace, right? And that if you're not working for the benefit of the populace, then you generally get ejected. Because one of the first things that single-party democracies do is create a vetting process to ensure that you're not corrupt, right? And if you are, you just get ejected. And they ensure that there's like a constant checking of this sort of thing. Whereas multi-party democracies, like, they're designed to be corrupt. You're supposed to be corrupted. Like, when Stephen Harper left office, he immediately sat on the board of an oil company. When Justin Trudeau leaves office, he's immediately going to go sit on the board of executives of some corporation. Like, the system is designed to be corrupt. That's why it has no validity whatsoever. And you're seeing it manifest itself in these ads where, like, literally Doug Ford is just lying. Like, these are lies. Like, black and white lies. They can't be interpreted any other way. Like, he's not trying to present his case in the best possible light, and we're going, well, you know, actually, there's like this point and that point. They are just overt lies. And when you have one party that's based itself on lies, right, even if the other party is based on truth, well, it'll come in and then it'll swing, and then it'll swing, and they're constantly fighting, and they're constantly at odds. And the populace is constantly fighting, and the populace is constantly at odds. What do you think happens? Like, what do you think happens? Eventually, the society goes to war with itself. Like, and you just look at American history to see the truth of that, right? Eventually, the society goes to war with itself because you've created a structure to do exactly that. And when the society goes to war with itself, the oligarchs who actually own both of these parties in the first place, right? They make off. They'll give you the guns. Ontario NDP released new ads on their YouTube page, getting the same 2008 campaign feeling. I don't think they're going to win a majority, but who knows? Maybe after the writ drops, people will pay attention. Yeah, that's usually the case, right? Like, get out of here, Steve.
This guy? He's gotta go.
He's gotta go.
But this...
44 subscribers to the Ontario NDP. What the fuck? Let's take a look.
Doug Ford says he's for the little guy. But what happened to that? Every chance he gets, Ford fails your family. When workers need paid sick days, Doug denies them. When local businesses need help, Ford sides with the big box stores instead. And with a crisis in seniors' care, Ford protects owners' profits instead of protecting the people who live there.
Also true.
For the little guy? Please. Doug Ford, here for his buddies, not for you. A message from Ontario's NDP.
I like that app. I like the music. I don't like that they didn't cut anything together. Like that it's just this picture. That kind of smacks. Although, sorry, my bad. This is a radio ad. I actually think that ad's going to be fairly effective. Like, because first of all, everything they say in it is true, right? Like that's always a good place to start, right? It's always good to start with the truth, to try to countervail like overt, obvious lying. And yeah, the writ hasn't been dropped, right? This is all just priming. This is all this is. We're just priming, right? We're just priming. So once the writ is dropped, don't be shocked. Like, everybody's going to have their ads ready to go. Like, once the writ is dropped, they're going to release a whole bunch of stuff and get this shit going, right? And I mean, this is Andrea Horwath's election. If she can't win this election, she needs to resign. Like, it is a must. She must resign and make way for other people. Like, she has to. And in my view, it would be a real shame. I actually do think that Andrea Horwath has done good work for the NDP. Like, Andrea Horwath's success as a politician has been gaining NDP seats in places where NDP seats have never been gained. Right? So she's breaking ice. And as we all know, breaking the ice is the hardest thing to do, right? Getting in and punching in and gaining seats where we haven't gained seats before. And election by election, she's done that. But when she breaks ice somewhere else, the other places where they've gained seats have swung back liberal or conservative, right? So they've punched through over here, while at the same time this is fallen. And then they'll punch through over somewhere else, and then this will kind of fall. And it's constantly this game of like things going up and down. But year over year over year, and her party knows that this is her success, as well as her strategy. That we've got to go into territory where we've never won and win, right? We've got to show that we can gain these seats and we can win here. And it doesn't actually matter that much if over here in a place where we've had a seat, that seat goes away, as long as we get seats in a place we've never gotten seats before. Because now the hope is that Andrea Horwath is going to be able to go to all of these places where she's broken through at one point or another and say, we all now need to rise up together. And if all of the places she has broken through throughout her whole career do in fact rise up together, she'll be the Premier of Ontario. That's her strategy. It's always been her strategy, and now's the time. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So she's either the Premier or she resigns. The It really is for her. Like, this election has been building up her entire career. Her entire career has been leading to this moment. So I can't imagine what the pressure is like for her right now. I can't imagine what it must be like for someone like Andrea Horwath in this moment, where she's running against like an empty seat liberal who both the Conservatives and the NDP are painting as a former Kathleen Wynne toady, which I think is going to play and be very effective. I think people are going to put the boot on the face of Del Duca and just he's going to be out of the conversation for the most part. And it's going to come down to it's going to come down to Horwath and like a literal lying psychopath. If she can't beat Doug Ford, she has to resign. She has to resign. Because there's got to be someone in her caucus that people will actually like. The problem with Andrea Horwath, here, let's just play this.
Hi, I'm Andrea Horwath, leader of the Ontario NDP. I hear it from parents every day. Relief that kids are back in school. Worry about what comes next. And frustration that Doug Ford hasn't fixed the problems in our schools. His cuts have made things worse. It's time to invest in smaller classes and more teachers and education workers, mental health supports, and safer schools. That's my plan, because that's what our kids deserve.
A message from Ontario's NDP.
She sounds like a substitute kindergarten teacher. That's Andrea Horwath's problem. Andrea Horwath's problem is that she looks like and sounds like and even plays music like she's a substitute kindergarten teacher.
Hi, I'm Andrea Horwath, leader of the Ontario NDP. I hear it from parents every day. Relief that kids are back in school.
Relief that kids are back in school. Right? There's a really bad one.
Worry about what comes next. And frustration that Doug Ford hasn't fixed the problems in our schools. His cuts have made things worse. It's time to invest in smaller classes and more teachers and education workers, mental health supports, and safer schools. That's my plan, because that's what our kids deserve.
That's what our kids deserve, right? Like, that's Andrea Horwath's problem, and it always has been. That Doug Ford's like a big fat dude, but he's just a big fat dude, and you go drink beer with Doug Ford, and yeah, hard hat, and oh yeah, I'm Doug Ford, here for the little guy, all that kind of stuff, right? Like he's just a big fat dude. You know these guys, right? We all love Chris Farley, right? Sure, we'll make fun of Chris Farley, but we love Chris Farley, and so we voted a Farley to be our leader, basically. Andrea Horwath, like you might think that Andrea Horwath is a nice lady. Right? Like you might actually say of Andrea Horwath, oh wow, she's such a nice lady, but I don't want a substitute kindergarten teacher to be my leader. That's the hill that she's going to climb. And it is a hill, right? You got to remember who the electorate is, guys. The electorate are the Bucka Beer crowd. Like those guys, Bob and Doug McKenzie, right? That's who is fucking voting. And they look at Andrea Horwath and they just see a sweet, nice substitute kindergarten teacher who they're not going to vote for. They're going to vote for Buckabeer. Right? And you guys wait, man. Like, Doug Ford is going to come out with a policy that is going to be more embarrassing than Buckabeer. You wait. Just wait for it. It's going to be stupider. It's going to be more ridiculous. And moreover, his supporters are gonna love it. They're gonna absolutely love it, right? Like literally, like it's gonna be something like, we're gonna give every citizen a donut with bacon on top, like a bacon grease donut for every voter, right? Like something fucking dumb like that, and people are gonna go for it. People are going to go for it. Wow, a donut with bacon on it. I'm voting for Ford for sure. Got me a donut that's got some bacon on it. Because, like, Canadians don't really value their vote, right? Like, the whole labor shortage thing that's happening and the whole situation that's happening right now, take a look at, like, the Fight for 15, right? Our votes are bought very cheaply. Like, our votes are bought very, 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 very cheaply. Like, we do not value our votes at all. And like, literally people voted for Doug Ford in the last election because buck a beer. Because straight up, just like, oh, wow, a buck a beer. Oh, go for a buck a beer. And it's always liberals and NDP types who don't want to admit that that is true. They don't want to admit that there are large sections of the populace who can have their vote bought with dumb, stupid shit like buck a beer. You wait. You wait. It's going to get very stupid. It's going to be very, very stupid. So all the best to Andrew Horwath. I'll be voting NDP in this next election. If only for the story, honestly. Andrew Horwath's trajectory as the leader of the NDP is the stuff of movies. It really is. It is like that moment where, like, there's a build-up of energy, and there's going to be like, and the winner of the election is, and there'll be like the swell of music and the focus in on Andrea and the focus in on Doug Ford and the focus in on both of them and then the focus in on the announcer, and then he'll call it and the balloons will go and the confetti will drop and Andrea will be crying and they'll be waving and all this kind of stuff, and then, you did it, Andrea, you did it, and then the credits will roll and all that kind of stuff. It is the stuff that they make movies about. Like, Andrea Horwath's trajectory as the leader of the NDP, like, I hope it happens. I hope it happens. Like, I'm rooting for her just for the narrative alone. Swirl the candidates. You know what, man? There you go. That's the basis of an electoral system right there. Just have David Lynch reach into a bucket filled with everybody's names and just pull out a thing and be like, Jim Johnson. And then right in the back of the room, woo! Couldn't be worse. Couldn't be worse than what we're doing now. Fucking, look how much we're paying for phones. Fucking bullshit. Yep, Toronto's gridlock already back, and your commute may get worse than ever. Like, and what's so goddamn stupid about this is that there's only one person in every single one of these. Like, no, we can't afford mass transit, but boy howdy can we all individually afford to have our own individual cars. Like, there should straight up be, like, mass transit going down this fucking 401. Like, get rid of all, like, there are people whose entire, like, what they're doing is they're getting into a car, they're driving to a place, parking the car, right? Turning around, driving back, parking the car. That's what they're doing. Send a fucking GO train down this, dude. Like, send some mass transit down this shit. Like, this is dumb. This is dumb, what we're doing. It's very, very stupid. But this is what you get when you don't actually plan, right? This is what you get if you don't actually have centralized planning. If you're not willing to do centralized planning, if you're not willing to actually, like, focus on a plan that should actually last past the passage of power, right? This is what you end up with. And it's going to get more obvious as time goes forward. It's going to get more obvious as time goes forward. We're going to be looking at other nations, and other nations will be like, yeah, our predecessors made a plan, and we all looked at the plan and said, yeah, that looks like a good plan, and then we just moved forward with that plan because it was a good plan. Maybe we altered a couple of things in it, but really the plan itself is what we cared about. While they're doing that, we're electing a new leader to scrap the old plan. Just take a look at the Toronto transit system, like the subway system. Toronto subway map. Like, this is essentially this orange line, by the way, doesn't actually exist. Like, this orange line doesn't actually exist. This is an above ground LRT kind of thing that they're still working on. And this is essentially what the subway system has looked like since the 60s. Right? This line is new. They built this line up here, right? And this orange line is currently under construction, has been for the last 10 years, and it's an above ground LRT line, right? But like, this is essentially what it's looked like for the last 60 years. Toronto is the most populous city in Canada. The reason why, and there have been people who have been like, okay, so you would think a relief line from like Union or Queen over here, right? Relief lines over this way, right? We could create relief lines here. Get a line from Pape over to the Science Center. Get lines, all this kind of stuff. Like, this place should have lines all over the place, right? The reason why it doesn't happen is because every single time a politician comes in, they sweep the previous politician's plans away and lay out their own plans. And then that guy gets swept away, and then it keeps happening. So no one actually takes the plan of their predecessor and says, very well, and says, who you've been talking to, okay, we'll just continue forward like that. It doesn't work that way, right? And because it's not working that way, because it's not actually happening, we are falling further and further and further and further and further behind. And it's going to get very, very clear that that's the case in fairly short order, if you ask me. So I wanted to send this around. I'm actually going to put this in the chat. This has the potential to become like the new foundation of the propaganda conversation in China. On Saturday, it's going to be 9 a.m. Here, so I won't even be awake for that. And in fact, I work that day, but I'm going to come back and watch this and probably break it apart and clip it. Cross those fingers on that. We'll see. We'll see if I actually get there. But I will, at the very least, listen in and watch this. These people who are part of this conversation are the heavy hitters in regards to debunking the propaganda against China, right? You've got Ben Norton, assistant editor from the Grey Zone, Chen Weihao from the EU bureau chief, China Daily, as well as Lin Jinjing. She's a reporter for China News, Daily News. Jenny Clegg, author and academic. Kenny Cole, contributor. Michael Wong, Danny Hapong, and then Daniel Dumbrill. Daniel Dumbrill is a YouTuber who has staked his entire career on debunking propaganda against China. So these are real heavy hitters in this conversation. And the fact that they're all getting together and having a big discussion and a big kind of thing about it could very easily turn into the foundation for standing against the propaganda that's coming out for us to justify the war against China. Because guess what? I would really like to not go to war with China. I think a war with China is fucking stupid. I think it would be very, very dumb to go to war with China. I think it would be bad for America. I think it would be bad for the rest of the world. I think it would be the worst possible case scenario for us to go to war with China. And any propaganda that's coming out against China from the West and from the United States should be looked at extremely skeptically and extremely critically. And this group of people right here that you're seeing right here, these are the guys who have built their career doing it. So I'm very much looking forward to this event. I think this could be very much one of the most important events in the conversation between America and China. That it will be, I hope it will become the basis of conversation, that Westerners will have to actually address some of the things that have been said here. And I hope it gets taken seriously, because it looks like a very serious event. Infrastructure is anything that helps working people to deliver profits to the ownership class. When you deploy infrastructure, you decide which owner wins the economic battle. Yeah. I mean, under this privatized system, right? When the system is privatized, when you as the leader pick a contractor who you then pay that contractor a big juicy contract, right, for them to do this kind of thing, because the whole thing is privatized, instead of actually having a department of infrastructure and doing it yourself, right, which is how things should be done, right? the government should have an organization, a Department of Infrastructure, whose job is to build infrastructure. Because what happens is that when a new party comes in, they just get rid of those contractors and give the deal to somebody else, right? They just pay their buddies. And it's completely a failed system. Like, it doesn't actually deliver on its promises at all. And like, it's so hilarious when capitalists start talking about how efficient their system is, because the only way the capitalist system is able to compete on the world stage is through overt forms of violence. Like, they cannot compete with other models, and which is why they have to keep destroying those models, right? That if capitalism was in fact the best model, why wouldn't they just let capitalism be capitalism and stop bombing these places? If these other systems are so bad, they should just fail, right? But that's not the reality of the situation. Ugh. Okay, guys, give me 1 second. You're gonna get a chair stream for one minute. I got a little pug here asking me for peanut butter. Peanut butter time. Peanut butter time. Got a little puggy asking for some peanut butter time. Peanut butter time. It's peanut butter time for Mr. Milo Pants. It's peanut butter time for Mr. Milo Pants. He's such a little puggy and he likes to dance. He's Milo, 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 Milo Pants. It's peanut butter time. Yeah, it's peanut butter time. Yeah, peanut butter time. All right. Yeah, if you have public transport available, your boss can pay you less because you don't have to pay for a car. Exactly. Yeah, there's the... Jeez Louise. The escalation of war propaganda against China ramped up suspiciously quickly, in my opinion. Like, you guys got to make it seem organic. Well, it's because... You got to remember, like, the capitalists, they only really think in, like, quarters. They don't actually think, they don't think things through, right? They really are just like, line go up today, line go up good, right? That's as far as they get. They think in quarters, and they think, maybe they think in annual, like, in a year. Maybe. And so... as they were funneling all of their resources into China, not one of them was thinking, what happens when China uses this stuff to actually help their own citizens and actually, like, make a strong, stable society? They didn't even ask the question, right? So, and it's not until Obama that you have a pivot to South Asia, right, which is the pivot to China, that Obama starts to talk about that, and the military-industrial complex starts to talk about it. So that's pretty late in the game, right? Like the funneling of all of our resources into China begins in the 80s, for God's sakes. And so it's not until, like, 2006 that they're even starting to talk about, like, hey, if we give all our money to China, then China will have all our money, right? And then Donald Trump picks up the anti-China sentiment, right? Like, part of his big thing was China, right? We're going to do a trade war, like the trade war on China, right? The tariffs and all that kind of stuff, which were an abject failure for America. Like, they completely did not work. And now you're into the Biden administration, and now with Biden, who unlike Trump actually seems more willing to go to war. Like, Donald Trump really didn't want to go to war that often, right? Like, what was his big war thing? He assassinated an Iranian general. That's what Donald Trump did. But when it comes to actually, like, Donald Trump didn't want to sell people on war. He actually was an anti-war candidate, if you recall. And if you listen to the Republicans talking, they do have an anti-war position. That's their rhetoric, right? It's bullshit, obviously, but Donald Trump didn't really go to war. Joe Biden has done way more war than Donald Trump. Like, Joe Biden has launched attacks in Syria. Joe Biden has launched attacks in Somalia. Joe Biden has, like, gone to war, right? And so it makes sense that under Joe Biden, who is a warmonger, that there would be a ramping up of propaganda against China, because I think that if Joe Biden gets reelected, that will probably be his signal to just move forward, right? Because he doesn't necessarily want to go to war with China and risk not being elected, because you got to remember him being the president is his own personal vanity project, and but once he gets elected the second time, he can't be reelected, and also he's quite old by then, so just do as much damage as you can, right? How many times has Trump threatened? But there's a difference between threatening and doing, right? Like, there's a difference between threatening and doing. And like the starting of a civil war, like it's not like he's like trying to kick off again, like the you're talking about the January 6th moment. Again, this is just the personal vanity project of Donald Trump, right? Like, it's just his own vain vanity project. Like, he doesn't actually want a civil war, right? He wants to be the president. That's it. And Trump dropped the Moab. The Moab. Oh, yeah. The bombing of in Afghanistan. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You guys are right about that. That Donald Trump did do big bombing throughout Afghanistan. That's true. He dropped, like, not only the mother of all bombs, but also, like, completely depleted the bombs throughout Afghanistan. That is true. That is true. But still, like, compared to Obama and Biden, Trump is like, what war did Trump start, right? Like, sure, maybe he continued the management of Afghanistan, and like, he didn't want to be the guy to withdraw from Afghanistan, but like Obama started 5 wars. Like, the pandemic showed everyone how working from home, having fewer places to shop, spending more time with family works for the economy, because people are richer and happier with work-family time. Yeah, and that's a problem. That's a big, big problem for the capitalist system, right? The capitalist system doesn't want its citizens to be happy, doesn't want people to be stable, doesn't want people to have a minute's breathing room. It very explicitly does not want that. It's not built for that purpose. And so this idea that's the reason why you're seeing all of these articles coming out trying to convince people to get back to work, right? Don't work from home, get back to work, right? Because the system of oppression must be all-encompassing, as it was before the pandemic. That your whole life needs to be this pursuit and nothing else. And if you have even a moment's breathing room, you might actually wake up and realize how fucked over you've been. Because this whole system is designed to fuck you over. Like, from the moment you are born to the moment that you die. The whole system is designed to fuck you over. Hey comrades, looks like I made it after fencing today. Hope all of you are doing okay in the midst of this dystopia. Thanks for popping in, Duke. Fencing, eh? Fencing. Well, I'll be sure to not say anything bad to you while there's a foil nearby, okay, bud? And just in case you weren't sure that there was a ramping up, right? CIA creates new mission centers focused on China and technology, just straight up. What was the other thing that I saw here? Pompeo, right? So the former director of the CIA has actually said sources for Yahoo News WikiLeaks report should all be prosecuted. So Not the people who are actually doing the crimes that have been exposed, but the people who leaked them. And that's the former head of the CIA. Like, that's a very, very dangerous thing. Like, this is the end of, this is just an admission that the CIA does not want journalism to exist. Flat out. That the CIA is a terrorist organization, and if you start to release documents or release things that show it to be a terrorist organization, then you should be attacked. Hey, Inquiring Mind. Hey, The Max. How you guys both doing? Good to see you both. I don't know why Trump is so scary to many people. He was business as usual with mean tweets. The thing I think about Trump is that, first of all, he was sort of an outsider in the first place, but it was because of his erraticness. He was so erratic, seeming. It seemed as though he didn't have a handle on the situation. Whereas, like, Obama and Biden and Bush and previous presidents all seemed like they had a handle on the situation, right? It seemed like there was, like, an organization there. When they would talk, it was all very calm. But Trump was very erratic. And the reason why Trump was erratic is because he was constantly running grifts, right? He was constantly running, like, unlike someone like Obama, right? Like, Obama's goal was to be the president, make good with the billionaire class, right? Be part of this upper echelon of society, do the warmongering and all of this, and then ultimately go and sit on some board of directors. Like, that was Obama's trajectory. And that's actually Biden's trajectory as well. Trump is different because Trump, he considered himself a businessman. And so he was constantly running grifts on the populace in order to funnel people into pursuits that he could make money off of, right? And because of this, and because of the positioning of an anti-establishment, of course, but because of all of this, it was very erratic, and you never knew what he was going to say. And it was always just like, what's coming next out of this guy? And because of the erratic nature of who he was, it lent to a lot of chaos and uncertainty. Because his goal was not to create certainty or to create stability. His goal was to foster an environment of instability, which he was very upfront about, incidentally. It just gets to me how we spend most waking hours working. Yeah, I found it kind of weird that not one political party ran on a 4-day work week even. Yeah, like they're not interested in helping us. Like, they don't work for us. A 4-day work week would impact capital, though. Well, but this is the funny thing, Bumbleguppy, is all of the studies show an increase in productivity and an increase in profits. All of the studies, without exception, all of them, right? Why won't they do it? Because that would relinquish control. That would relinquish control. I agree, there were things about Trump that were status quo, but he was enabling fascists. Yeah, that's true. I do think that the difference between someone like Donald Trump and Biden or Obama is that Donald Trump was like this enabling of fascists, this opening the door and outright just saying to these white supremacists, it's cool that you're here, there's good people on both sides, like those sorts of things. Whereas I think Biden and Obama understand that in order to maintain their position of prowess amongst their own base, they have to be more explicitly anti-fascist, at least in their rhetoric. The Biden policies are very pro-fascist. Like, Biden is very pro-fascist in terms of his policies, but that's not really how people think. They don't actually look at policy and think about that. Because to understand policies means you actually have to understand the structure of your society, and most Americans don't. Trump positioned himself as an anti-establishment figure. Yeah, absolutely. It really wouldn't more free time to spend money if anything. But you can't let people have enough time to realize how badly they're being fucked. Like, you can't. Like, the system is so without credibility. It's so bereft of credibility at this point that if you give people even a moment to just sort of sit there and go like, about it. And even worse than that, if people actually start talking to one another, right? If people actually get like a day off together even, right? The capitalists don't want everybody to have a day off together, because if everybody has a day off together, that means everybody can talk to one another, right? And if everybody starts talking to one another, they might start saying like, "Hey, wait a minute, who are these guys that we're working for?" Right? Like really, really basic, easy shit. Like really, really basic, easy shit. Like, hey, wait a minute, who are we all working for? Why? Why are we working for? Let's all just get together and not. Right? That's what they're most worried about. That's why we'll never see a 4-day work week. We'll never see stability in the job market. We'll never see any of that. Because the number one thing that the capitalists do not want us to do is get together and actually talk about how fucking stupid all of this is. Right? They absolutely do not want that. Number one thing they don't want. So, like, they're willing to pay more to ensure that it doesn't happen. Like, you could show them an article and show them the studies and show them all the stuff. You could show all your business people, right? Hey, 4-day work week, increased profits. And their response will be, yeah, I'm willing to pay a little bit more. I'm willing to lose those profits for the privilege of crushing these guys. Like, Jeff Bezos's stated strategy is to burn people out. That's his, out of his mouth, it has said many times, his stated agenda is to burn people out, to burn through a populace. That's his stated goal. The idea that a guy like that is going to turn around and be like, yeah, 4-day work week. No, that's not going to happen. It's just not. Like, and this is what's so annoying, is that, like, you see leftists online and on YouTube that making videos and spending time and effort trying to convince people that, like, yeah, 4-day work week, as if suddenly just because it's rational and real, it's gonna actually manifest as it's not gonna work that way. It's not going to work that way. Like, these capitalists are psychopaths. They are trying to destroy us on purpose. They're not going to give us a break. They're not going to say, like, oh yeah, 4-day work week, right? Like, even if it benefits them, that they don't care about that. They are interested in destroying us. How do I know? They've said it. It's come out of their mouth on many occasions. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for us to recognize this. Like, what is it actually going to take for us to recognize that these capitalists are psychopaths who are trying to kill us? Like, does Bezos literally need to come out with a pistol, walk up to 12-year-olds and just start capping them in the street? Because that's the last, like, that's it. That's all he can do now. Like, that's all these wealthy people can do now. We already know they're pedophilic child rapists. We already know that their stated agenda is to exhaust and destroy people for their own benefit. What's left? What's left? Literally taking a gun and shooting people in the streets. That's literally all they can do. There isn't another level, right? Like, is that what's going to have to happen? Like, are we literally going to have to find out that Jeff Bezos, like, hunts people for sport? Because I almost guarantee you he does. Like, I almost guarantee you he does. The CIA wants stenographers, and it has many of them in the media. Well, and the CIA's gotten to the point now where, like, to be a reporter is to be a CIA asset. Like, the idea that they're independent from one another is a joke. The entire reason I have a channel that is growing is because of this fact. Because the CIA, like, what's the difference between Fox, CNN, ABC, and the CIA? Like, what is the difference? Like, they all work together. They're all connecting with one another, right? Oh yeah, Trump was for sure a grifter, dude. Well, and he is a grifter. His whole life he's been a grifter. The coming climate crisis and failing profit extraction from workers means there must be a means to keep the populace pacified. It's a question of maintaining oligarchy or moving towards autocracy. I mean, they're gonna use military force, dude. Like, that's their strategy. Like, They're automating their military, right? Like Jeff Bezos with these drones and all this shit. Like, I mean, sure, he's built an empire from like drone delivery, but like all of those drones are military. Like, for sure they are. The idea that Jeff Bezos isn't going to like snap his fingers and put a pistol on every single one of those drones is a joke, right? Like, he's got a drone army. It's already here. It's in front of us, right? And like, have you seen the picture of the blimp? Right? So like Bezos could literally just like float a blimp into a territory that's loaded with drones. And like, because they've got so much wealth and money, they don't even need to put like guns on these things. They literally could just take a drone, put an explosive on it, and fly it into things. Like, and the idea that they won't is a joke. Like, of course they will. Like, of course they will. And keeping the populace pacified is going to actually be very simple. Right? Because first of all, the first thing, especially the American public, like the public itself is divided, right? That they've done an exceptionally good job of dividing the public between Republican and Democrat. And there's going to be a war about that first, right? That the public itself is going to fight amongst itself first, right? And then the idea that after that happens, there's also going to be a fight between the classes, right? Well, if these guys on the bottom fight amongst themselves and blow the shit out of themselves while the owners watch and sell them weapons to do it, like these guys are going to be so beleaguered and exhausted that that for them to fight against the owners, like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to have the will or the ability. And so you're like, we are looking at an America that isn't going to confront its ownership class for generations. Because first they need to find ways to ameliorate and connect with one another and group together in solidarity, like as a people first, right? And they're not there. The Republicans and the Democrats are going to have a war first. That's going to happen first. And you can see it already in the streets of like Portland, right? You got the Proud Boys and Antifa, right? And the Proud Boys are backed by the police, right? So there's already an ongoing, unfolding conflict there between these two forces in the public sector already, right? So at what point is the public able to actually fight against these corporate overlords? So, and that's not going to be resolved in America for generations and generations. So here in Canada, the concern is, well, first of all, we don't want to fall into that. We don't want to fall into this trap, right? I'm actually quite grateful that O'Toole moved closer to the center, right? I'm actually quite grateful for him for doing that because it shows a kind of rationality within the Conservative Party, a desire to not plunge the society into a civil war. And hopefully we here in Canada can actually move forward within this generation to set things up for the next generation. But in America, like, they're not even going to begin that process until after the Civil War, which is 100% going to happen. At this point, it is going to take a miracle. It's going to be some kind of miracle to ensure that America does not have a civil war. Like it's going to take some kind of like cultural hero, like really, like somebody is going to have to come out of America who has like the power of like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, with like the charisma and likability of like Mick Jagger, to come together and actually get that civil war to not happen. That's what's going to happen in America. So it's literally going to be a miracle for it to not occur. And you, like, a miracle on the level that you're going to have like an iconic, like Jesus Christ level figure come out of the society to do it. And I just don't see him. So when the Civil War happens, you're going to have a whole generation of people who are going to blow themselves up over it. And only after that occurs are people going to be able to pick up the pieces. And there's no guarantee who's going to win that, right? Like, there's no guarantee that it's going to be like the communist, like, forward-thinking socialist types that are going to win. It could very easily be the fascists that win. Especially because they have institutional support. And so, like, the story in America is bleak, guys. The story in America is bleak. For the Europeans and for the Canadians in the audience, we can avoid it. We can avoid it. But to avoid it means actually moving away from capitalism, means actually erecting social systems, means actually erecting policies that are going to benefit not only us, but also the next generation, right? We've actually got to, do a thing called building a society, right? And we have the opportunity to do so. The Americans do not. Yeah, someone who only cares about their ego and winning is very dangerous, yeah. And when they run an effing country, yeah. And 4 days is still giving the businesses a majority of our days. We could manage 2-day work week if we embraced automation and AI. Well, and also got rid of all the bullshit jobs, Max. Like, get rid of all the bullshit. Like, David Graeber, a very powerful economist, very, very much worth reading, wrote a book called Bullshit Jobs. And his conclusion was 30% of the work that we do is pointless. So, like, 30% of our work days, get rid of that. And then you've got the 4-day work. So, like, just get rid of the bullshit jobs. Like, get rid of the jobs that are pointless. If he looked like he was thinking, people would wait for something ridiculous to come out of his mouth. Yeah. I work 4 days per week. I work alone. I'm a contractor. I hate jobs, and employment is dumb. Yeah. I don't know. Grinning, I love that one. I love that comment, just because it's just like, I work 4 days per week. I work alone. I'm a contractor. I hate jobs, and employment is dumb. Something very, like, succinct and pure about it. 4-day work week is more productive for office workers, but more labor and service jobs function that they need X hours to operate. A 4-day work week will increase costs, which is fine, but they don't want that. They also worry because studies have shown, I remember an article that a 4-day work week makes the job less significant compared to hobbies and such. Exactly. No, and you got to remember, like, these guys are psychopaths. Like, they want you to sacrifice your life to their job. They'd run the Squid Games if they could. Who says they're not? Like, who says they're not? Like, for real, let's be straight up. Like, think about how easy it would be for them to do something like that. It would be incredibly easy. Like, maybe it wouldn't be on that kind of, like, extravagant scale that the Squid Games were, but, like, how difficult would it be for them to actually do that? And who's to say they're not? Like, I believe very firmly in, like, this is 100% just, like, instinct and conspiracy for sure. I do not have a document. I do not have supporting documents. But, like, we know for a fact that the CIA was walking around the streets of Afghanistan gunning down children, right? We know. Like, we literally have recordings of soldiers picking people off with sniper fire. Like, we've got reports of people shooting the elderly and children in the streets with snipers and going like, ha! Ha! Yeah, got him! Right? Like, for sure. So like, the idea that, like, these psychopaths are not also running something like the Squid Games, of course they are. Like, what are you talking about? Incidentally, everybody should watch the Squid Game. Like, Squid Games. I think it's become crucial cultural watching. That one of my big complaints about modern television and film and media has been that there isn't really, it's all just kind of the same bullshit vomited in our faces. Squid Game is new. It's something new, and it's got a very, 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 very sharp and well-articulated critique of wealth accumulation. That outright, it explicitly insists and demands that if you have wealth, you are a psychopath. And that it also says there is no punishment for the wealthy. That the only punishment that the wealthy will face is the dismantling of the systems after they die. That is it. I don't really feel the need to blame Trump. He's just a symptom. Yeah, the problem is the system. Yeah, and the blaming of Trump is a tactic. It's a way to deflect people away from blaming the system or analyzing the system or paying attention to the system, right? Pretend that Trump is the problem, and then you'll ignore Biden when he does worse things than Trump did, right? Like ICE detainment has gone up 70% under Biden, right? Funding of military and police recruitment was doubled under Biden. Like the idea that Biden and Trump are somehow different, like outside of the characters that they are, is laughable. Like they both operate on the same trajectory. Like they operate for the same system. They work for the same people. They go to the same places. You know, the only difference between the two of them is that Trump was a trash talker and Joe Biden's kind of just like, come on, man, malarkey, right? That's it. Capitalists with the cult of the free market have at this point essentially redone the divine rights of kings for them. Yeah, of course they have. The divine rights of kings is well established now. Like, billionaires earn it. That's the divine right of kings, right? They earned their wealth. That's just a restatement of the divine rights of kings. Problem is the system, absolutely. It's the system that is creating right-wing populism and left-wing populism. It's our job as socialists to turn as many right-wingers to our side as possible. And I actually think that is easier to do than you think, right? Like, the right-wingers, the right-wing populists know that something's gone wrong. Like, I actually really hate right versus left. I really do. Like, right versus left, to me, is an established dynamic by the powerful in order to simplify the conversation and keep what is fundamentally true about the conversation out of the conversation, which is that truthfully the only difference between a right-winger and a left-winger is that left-wingers understand the system and the structure of the system and right-wingers don't. That right-wingers are saying dumb things like individualism, systems don't exist, right? That was so long ago, right? These kinds of trite, dumb things that people say. But the reality is if you take if you get through all that with a right-winger, and then you start talking to them about, okay, what are some solutions? Like, how should we move forward? All this kind of stuff. And then they start talking about what they feel the solutions are. They're fucking communists. Every single one of them. That's the PPC too, by the way. If you actually listen to them and you listen to like, what are some solutions for you? Like, what are the solutions that you have? They're fucking communists. Every single one of them, right? They just refuse. They've just been so bamboozled by the propaganda and those terms that they get caught in it. And they refuse to acknowledge that. And if you present their ideas to them and say, hey, Lenin said this, Mao said this, right? Then they just shut it all down and you can't continue, right? But if you can get a right-winger to realize that there's a structure and to realize that there's a system and to see the system for what it is, they'll immediately come to your side. And it's instant. It's instant. Because they're already saying this shit. They're already socialists. They're already communists. Like, they're already doing it. Because guess what? Communism and socialism is common sense. It's common sense, really, like, rural, basic stuff. It really, really is. That the differences that exist between the right wing and the left wing, especially amongst, like, poor working class folk, are almost non-existent. That the conversation we're having is, do you think there are systems or not? And that's what makes the PPC dangerous, by the way. It isn't their white supremacy, which is dangerous, but it's the fact that they don't think systems exist. Like, that's a big, big problem. Because, and we've seen it, like someone like Doug Ford, who doesn't think systems exist, gets into office and he just destroys the system. Because if you don't think a system exists, then it doesn't matter if you destroy it. Oh my God, a person I know is posting about carbon capture pilot project in Iceland as a way to show we can still be hopeful. I just can't. Yeah. The carbon capture pilot project is just a way for capitalists to sell us more toys. That's it. It's not going to be successful. All right, I'm going to get through what you guys have said here, and then we're going to say goodnight. I totally agree. We need another Martin Luther King Jr., yeah. You mean AOC isn't Christ-like enough? AOC, yeah. Ich finde es cool, dass ich in diesem Video dabei sein darf. What a beautiful language. Kermit the Frog for Savior. Lovers, Dreamers, and Me. David Graeber was great. We lost him too soon. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We need to build a robot revolutionary to send us. We can upload some Mao into it. The robot will lead us. Yeah, right, dude. The robot will save us. Can't trust AI. Gotta be Gundams. Exactly. Captain Canuck. What a great name, dude. Captain Canuck. Isn't right versus left mutual aid versus mutual exploitation. Left versus right. That's an interesting point, Drew. I'm going to think on that more about it. I'll come around on that. Hit me up earlier in the thing, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Because I think, yes, I see where you're at, but the right doesn't view what it's doing as exploitation, right? It says really dumb things like oh, you can just go get a different job, right? And because they don't understand the system, and they don't understand that like the wealthy own all the jobs, so you're always working for the same guy. They don't really view it along those lines. Again, because they don't have a critical analysis of their society, right? Yeah, I noticed that a lot of right-wingers are actually socialists but don't know it. They're scared of the label because 100 years of propaganda. Exactly, yeah. And Caps love localized communes. Common sensualism. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? Common sensualism. Ooh. Marked. Common sensualism. Yeah. You should check the channel Re-Education if you haven't, John. Good communist content. Re-Education. I like the icon already. That's fun. What is anarcho-Canada? Oh, Bob Shimano seems new. Okay, I'll take a look, dude. Looks good to me. Get another capitalist job. Exactly. Okay, guys. We did it. We got to the end. Boy, howdy, I hope you guys are all doing really wonderfully out there. I really hope things are going well for you and your loved ones. I know we're facing some dark days and some dark stuff, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that each and every one of you comes in here and we get to share our ideas and our thoughts and stand in solidarity with one another. That I think is the most important part, that we stand in solidarity for one another as we walk through these dark days. Never forget, each and every one of you is a divine being, standing in divine energy. These capitalists are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to convince you otherwise. Don't let them. Good luck. We're going to need it.